I'm doing this tonight. Hey, everybody. It's the Sunday show after dark. It's like your evening church service, but from a completely skeptical, humanist, atheistic perspective. And it's been fucking forever since me and Forrest got to do a show together. So how are you?
Yeah. I'm fantastic. It has been a crazy summer. I've been missing you guys down there. I'll be in Austin for those other guys here, and I think in next week or something like that. Yeah, hopefully we can kick it and do a thing. All right.
Yeah, come on over and hang out. It's all good. How was BajaCon? I know you got to go. I had to cancel really nice. A year ago, and I still I know that there's somebody there who like I think paid to do a Zoom call with me, and I know I need to get with that person, but I've misplaced the email, so I'm gonna have to reach out to them. But did you enjoy it this year? Everybody said it was great.
I loved it. I had never been before, and I just like that was the first atheist only like convention thing that I've ever done. The only other conventions that I've done have been like just creator stuff, like VidCon and NocoCon and stuff, where I'm just a guy that's there, and maybe people have seen my stuff. This was the first one that I've been to where it was all about that one kind of content, and it was wild. Like getting to just hang out with everybody and get to know everybody, and meeting so many people who watch my stuff on a regular basis was bizarre, but it was a tremendous amount of fun.
That's good to hear. Hopefully one of these days, as long as I haven't angered them with my failure to follow through on my responsibilities, I'll get to go up there and hang out. I've got to redo my passport as well, but nice. Yeah,
I'm already planning on doing it next year, so hopefully we can do it sometime.
If I get my thing done by next year and they want me to go, I'll go with you. We can hang out.
Hell yeah.
But I don't invite myself to places, so they'll have to like re-invite me. Anyway, I did a Reptile Expo this weekend and the weekend before, and I'm off of Reptile Expos for the next couple of weeks. We will be doing NARBC in Dallas at the beginning of September and a few others. We did really well in Corpus, and we actually did really well at this last expo too, even though we didn't quite sell as many snakes. I sold decent snakes, and I also bought some snakes from someone they've got like 400 snakes and they needed to unload, and so they were offering a really special deal to the other vendors of, hey, you buy a snake for $150, you can have $150 credit on any other snake you want. And I was like, ooh, I'll take that one and that one and that one and that one and that one. Basically, I got 2-for-1 deals. And so I didn't spend much. I only spent a couple $100, but we got some good snakes that were working. Really good stuff.
That's excellent.
All right. So you did the Sunday show at 2. And I heard you took calls, including from people that I don't let call me anymore. But if any of them need to do a repeat call, although it's probably best that they don't, I'm not opposed to allow people to call in that I've previously banned. If in fact,
I heard
have some good conversation.
We had one call from a person named Jackie, and I heard things went poorly between you and them a little bit, just before that as well.
Is Jackie the smug teenager?
I don't know if they're a teenager, but they said they love Jordan Peterson, and so like I was all right, that tells me a lot. Yeah. Well, I guess they should watch your debate with Jordan Peterson if they and see, if they still think anything that man says holds up. I don't know, man. But they called in on the 2:00 show to present the Kalam cosmological argument by not calling it that and saying that it was some derivation of the Kalam cosmological. It was the exact same goddamn thing. It was great.
So, yeah, I was talking with Arden about that because the cosmological arguments are a class of arguments. The Kalam is a particular version of it, and it's very straightforward. Everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause for its existence. That's the Kalam. Right. It is incredibly similar to, contingency arguments, but not the same. There's some subtle things, but it's almost not worth worrying about the subtle differences because they're all related to and similar to, oh, there must be a first cause, or there must be a first event or start for this causal chain, and there must also be a first thing that other things are contingent upon. But we've got calls already queued up, and actually, it's funny you mentioned Jordan Peterson, because Hunter's calling from Arkansas.
Flip.
Or no, Arizona. No, Arkansas. No,
it's Arkansas.
And he wants to talk to me about Jordan Peterson. Well, that's going to go well. And Forrest about evolutionary biology. Hunter, what makes you think you get to talk to two of us about two different things? You're like the first caller.
Yeah.
Bastard.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I tried to plan it out as like good as I can just to be efficient. But yeah, I idolize both of y'all. Y'all are very important.
Well, stop that.
To say that.
Find better
I
idols.
got to.
Find yourself better idols.
Especially Forrest.
Better heroes.
But but to you, Dillahunty, first. My brother, me and my brother, like, we get into conversations sometimes, and I can tell, like, because I listen to a lot of this. I listen to a lot of this stuff, and I can tell everything he's getting is from Jordan Peterson, and he makes these claims like it's like, well, how can you know, like he'll say there's no God, but he'll also say like, well, the thing, it don't have to be a God. It could be like if it is just the beginning of the universe, you call that God. And I didn't know. It kind of confuses me because I don't really get what he's like saying or if it means anything. I tell him every time he says that, I tell him like, well, like, what does that even mean? And then it's just kind of like weird from there.
Yeah, you can say like, look, there needs to be a start of everything, but you don't even know that. There are problems with, did everything have a beginning, or has everything always existed in some form or another, or is it percolating from multiverse and all these other things? But if at the end of it, all they're doing is saying, hey, I don't really know, but whatever it is that is the reason for everything, I'm just going to call that God. And the problem is, what's happened is you've inverted kind of the way we should be going about things. Instead of beginning with observations and inquiry and saying, hey, what can we figure out about the origin of the universe? Instead, they're adopting a God concept that just exists out there that hasn't met its burden of proof, and saying, well, I don't know if I like those particular things, but there's got to be something, so I'll just call that God. And it's in many ways, I can't think of a better word for it, cowardly, in the sense that the only reason to do that is so that you can tell other people that you believe in some kind of God, even if it's not at all like their God. There's no reason to say, I'm going to call the origin of the universe God, whether it's a person, whether it's an agent, whether it's a mind, whether it's, the multiverse. You're only doing that so that you get the label. And that only occurs because we built a society where the label gets you status, clout, or avoids being ostracized. And so all of these people who are taking the God label and saying, oh, the universe is God, or the origin of the universe is God, or the thing behind the universe is God, even when they don't even know if there's a thing behind the universe, they want the ability to say, I believe in a God. I believe in something. I'm not like those people. I'm not like those atheist people, those godless heathens, or anything like that. And so the words have value, and they insert them, even though it's absolutely empty sophistry at that point.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. I guess I'll just ask Forrest now about that. Okay. Sorry, I'm kind of thinking of words here.
You're fine. I was just looking up some some things about Jordan Peterson while you were speaking. And I was just looking up like some of his funniest tweets. My pronouns are leave me alone. What a great thing to post. As a psychologist, as a PhD psychologist and a practicing at the time therapist, to like, but all this is major psychology associations. Fuck you guys. Also, there's this one where he said that there are no neo-Nazis in Canada. That's great. Or when he claimed that Elliot Page's transition was prideful and that pride is a sin. I didn't see that one. What? Oh my glob, dude.
Actually, one more thing, Matt, about that. Forrest actually brought that up. He also brings up arguments against transgender people from same arguments Jordan Peterson does, as well as that. If you had any like comments on like how I can explain to him in any way, like help me understand it better.
He brings up what?
Like arguments against transgender people, like the same ones that Jordan Peterson would make as well.
I don't know what arguments Jordan Peterson makes against trans folks because I don't listen to Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I'm having to go here on a little Google search to see what the man actually says, because I stopped taking him seriously a long time ago. After like the third time,
I stopped taking him seriously the day after we had our event in. Granted, I probably didn't take him seriously all that much right before it, but definitely after he said he'd do another event and then ran off and hid in his dressing room and avoided me at all costs later. Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
This is what apparently he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and Joe Rogan asked how many people starve to death in the world, and Jordan Peterson said almost none. Okay.
Wow.
This is from a thing from the San Antonio Current. It's not a primary source. I'm not watching the video. That's just what is written here in this article. And apparently after that, he said, there isn't any hunger in the world that isn't caused by political conflict. Everyone has enough to eat, which isn't accurate in any way that you slice that. But okay, I'm just having fun looking this dude up at this point, because I don't like sit down and listen to what he's saying. Go on with your question. I'm sure you're asking something that has a point, and I'm just over here having fun at this point.
No. I guess that'd be it. That's fair enough. I guess I'll just ask Forrest my question.
Sure.
Yeah, you've kind of made me want to do evolutionary biology because I watched your series. What was it called? Light of Evolution. Yeah.
Oh, neat.
I watched that I've watched that like three times or so. And after doing research, I think I'm almost sure that's what I want to do.
Right on.
Like, I'm trying to like word this right. Like, if this makes sense, like, what is the best way to approach that field and like learn as much as I can and be able to like get through college and like actually get, like be able to do something fun with it, I guess.
So honestly, like, yeah, if you're just super into it, like you're going to have a great time learning it. Finding a job in biology is a whole other thing. You're probably going to end up working in a lab for a little while, or maybe you can get like a cool teaching and research position at a university. If you're going for higher education, like a master's or a PhD, if you find a good university that's going to like do cool stuff, they will pay you to go. It's not going to be a lot. It'll be just a stipend where they cover your tuition, and you might make like a couple $1,000 a month to do that. And that's pretty cool. And then if you go from there and continue on a research position, you can start actually making some serious money. But like the best thing to do if you're just starting out is just start studying biology from an organismic lens, looking at individual organisms, their individual adaptations, what makes them special, and why they are the way that they are. And that is the point of any evolution, because like evolutionary biology, you're studying the process of evolution. But like if you want to take an organismic approach, which is what I did in my undergrad, and like you focus on individual organisms and like why they are the way they are, that the answer is evolution, and you'll get those like building blocks as opposed to just studying mechanisms. You'll see consequences as well, and I think that's really important. So I would recommend always to anybody, learn in the most irreverent, silly ass, unique way possible. Do things the way that work for your brain. Take more classes than you have to. Study more stuff than you have to. Keep branching out. Keep looking at 15 things at once. Not only because it's the way that I learn, and I think it's really cool, but also because, especially in biology, like, and especially in evolution, there's no just one right answer for everything all the time. And most often than, like, if you find something and you're asking, why is this way? You'll have 5 different answers that are all valid. Some may be heavier than others. And that'll kind of help if you get that kind of thinking early on and start branching out your brain and trying to be real eclectic in your learning. It'll help you fill in a lot more blanks as you move along down the line. That's what I would say. And that might sound like a little bit of a word salad, but basically it boils down to, don't follow a strict study plan all the time. Be weird in your education and make sure that you are looking things through an organismic lens so that you are understanding like that everything about this individual organism tells a story, every single little thing. And thinking about it that way really helps kind of like give you a big picture mindset, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense.
Yeah. Also, make friends with your professors. That's another good thing, is talk to your professors after class, chat to them about the things that you're particularly interested in. Ask really good questions all the time. If you can, network. Get email addresses or phone numbers from TAs, from grad students, from professors, from whoever, so you can send them questions. I had a few professors through my undergrad that I would text, be like, hey, I just learned this thing in this. I was reading a book and it said this crazy stuff. Is that because of this or because of that? And they wouldn't tell me the answer. They'd say, well, you can find out by checking here. And then I would learn like 15 more things. So do that as much as you can.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually having to break a habit of that. Yeah, that's actually good. Well, I guess that's it. I guess that's all.
All right.
Now.
Well, thank you for calling in. I appreciate it. And I know you weren't already, but don't listen to Jordan Peterson.
No, I promise. I'm not.
Sweet.
All right. See you later, man.
All right, man. All right.
Bye. Well, I said I'd do it, so I did it. And we've got Jackie calling in. Jackie,
apparently he doesn't teach anymore, and he's like having his license revoked. I don't know. He had to like take some sensitivity courses, and he's refusing to do that.
There's been all kinds of stuff like that. But
I'm learning so much right now. I'm gonna have to do this. I'm sorry. I know we're doing a show, but
yeah, like read about Jordan Peterson on some other day, some other time.
Yeah, right.
But Jackie's calling in. Pronouns are him. Wants to talk about the unity of conscience for the revelation of the divine will. Jackie, I'm happy to go through some stuff on unity of conscience, but are you saying that the unity of conscience or unity of consciousness is somehow tied to or reveals divine will? I don't know what the connection is that you're making.
It's the revelation of divine will. So I tried asking last time, but you said no. I'll ask for
hang on.
Just answer the question.
So you're saying that the fact that there is unity of conscience itself is a revelation of divine will?
Yes, and particularly divine will of the Judeo-Christian Metatrades.
I have a question already. How is that any different at all? How is that any? Because when you called in a minute ago with me and Jesse, you said you had this new argument, and it was just the Kalam cosmological argument, and it is the exact same thing. Now you're saying this: the unity of consciousness is demonstration of the divine will and all this stuff. How is that any different than when people say, just look at the trees and creation itself proves that there's a God? How is that any different than that?
It's significantly more nuanced than that. Just work with me. So first of all, do you know, Forrest, who Gilles Deleuze was?
That name sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you.
Let me pause for a second. I'm going to mute you, Jackie. I'm going to pause. I swear on the God you think you're advocating for that I will never be impressed nor give a flying fuck about you mentioning the name of any individual. The name of every individual is irrelevant. If you want to talk about the concept of the unity of consciousness, we can do that. If you want to say that the existence of unity of consciousness is itself revelation of divine will, we can do that. And all you need to do is make the case for what divine will is, how we can tell what divine will is, and how the unity of consciousness demonstrates divine will. No person that you mention is fucking relevant at all. Your name dropping annoys me. It does not impress me. And it is irrelevant to the argument. And anybody who knows how to argue properly knows that citing all of these people is nonsense distraction. So let's try this again. I'm going to unmute you. Without dropping your names, explain how the existence of the unity of consciousness, which, for those who aren't aware, unity of consciousness covers a couple of different related things. One is that you get sense data from various things. You get sound, you get light, you get taste, smell, everything. And they come in and your brain creates a narrative out of it. So that when you see someone grab your hand and you feel someone grab your hand, even those are different sense data coming from that, your brain merges that into an event and makes it appear to be just an experience of you. And this is similar to the mind being what the brain does, in the sense of my mind is experiencing all kinds of things, and I can view it as like it's me and my mind, or I can view it like I am my mind. And that unity of consciousness is the narrative that our brains build. I need to know how that the existence of my brain lying to me, building
That is what it
a
is.
fictional story that is not true. We have optical illusions, auditory illusions, all kinds of things. Our brain takes the sense data and builds a story, and the story is an approximation of reality, and it makes us feel as if we are experiencing it without it being distinct things, without going, ooh, someone just touched me, and I just saw someone touch me, let me merge that there. The brain kind of does it for you. I just need to know how the existence of that brain phenomena, that cognitive phenomenon, demonstrates divine will. And I will take you off mute so you can tell us how that demonstrates divine will.
That was a very direct question. I really hope you give a very direct answer, Jackie.
Divine will in the Metatruths of the Judeo-Christian canon is the order that calls to consciousness and Texio Malthism. So under the postmodern condition, thought of by people like Deleuze, the problem is people think...
Goodbye. Okay. Unfortunately, I guess we're not going to get to how the unity of consciousness demonstrates divine will, because Jackie doesn't listen. Tried to give you the thing. We're not here. All you had to do was say the existence of the phenomenon that we identify as unity of consciousness is a demonstration of divine will because blah, 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 blah.
Finish the sentence.
Instead, you had to let me throw a bunch of words in there and then start citing the very people that I told you not to bother citing. You're bad at this, Jackie. That's the reason that I don't have the patience to talk to you. I know what unity of consciousness is. I was able to just explain it to people pretty straightforward. I'm sorry that you're incapable of doing that, but you and I are probably never going to have a decent conversation because you are so impressed with the fact that you can cite references and toss off words. Instead of just talking in plain language and saying, I think that the unity of consciousness is a demonstration of divine will because the disparity of signals within the brain needs some way of merging. And I just don't believe that the human brain can construct this sort of conscious narrative without some sort of divine intervention. And because we know from our studies in Christianity that the way to tell divine will is by A, B, and C, and A, B, and C line up with unity of consciousness, that's the way to argue. Until you learn to do that, you can call Forrest or whoever else wants to talk to you. I'm tired of giving you chances when you are incapable of carrying on an honest conversation and making any sort of argument that isn't packed full of blubbery fluff while ignoring exactly what I told you needed to happen.
It's like what's frustrating about it is that like that kind of language where you say like here's a paragraph on the history of what I'm talking about and all the people who say these things and now here's my argument. That's how I have to write for like of that. That's what you do in grad school. That's the point of like higher education shit. But when you speak that way, it comes across as I heard these people say these things and I haven't thought about them at all. But like here's what somebody, it comes across either as incredibly pedantic or as just very unoriginal, and it's weird coming out of somebody who, if you're saying this person is young as well, like to me that sounds like somebody who is being like who's very very into. I think he was the Jordan Peterson man too, very into that kind of pseudo intellectual language, very influenced by people who throw around credentials before they actually say anything. And like is just really impressed by people who sound smarter than they are. Like I don't know, and is trying to do that same thing. It just it doesn't read right. It comes across very much as somebody who's trying to impress rather than convince. And I don't like. I think it'd be more impressive if you said something convincing. I don't know. Yeah. That's just me.
Yeah, I just know when it comes to Jackie, I can't take no more. Baby, bye.
That was silly.
Here we go with
I'm excited
M.
about line 12.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
No, we'll do line 4.
We got M from Canada. Pronouns are they, she. Has questions about trust in science and how much skepticism should we have towards science. Oh, I got big thoughts about this, and I'm sure Forrest does too, because when somebody says how much skepticism, I'm like, that is a gross conceptual error. There's not a way to quantify skepticism, and there is no point at which skepticism is suspended or abated. You are always skeptical. Skepticism isn't cynicism. So you believe based on the evidence. And when there's sufficient evidence to warrant belief, skepticism encourages that belief. And until there is, skepticism says we shouldn't encourage that belief. That's it.
Yeah,
that honestly kind of that helps a lot already. Sorry, Forrest, go.
Cool.
Oh no, I was gonna say like without like I get what you mean, like how skeptical should we be? The answer is just yes. And so like a lot of people they hear skepticism and they think that it means like just deliberately not believing a thing, and that's simply not what it is. It is trying to ask good questions. And so like with science, I'm a biologist. I don't know shit about like computers at all. And so when a computer scientist comes in and says some stuff about how computers work, I don't have the knowledge base to even ask relevant good questions, but I can see still like how they're the fruits of their labor. And if they said something that sounded wild to me, I would have a lot of questions to build up to that point. And so like I don't even know enough to be perplexed by it yet. But if I did, I would, I'd have a lot of pointed questions to go off them, and that would be a skeptical exercise. As far as like just blind trust in science, that's no more reasonable than faith in anything else. If you study science, you've learned that there is a lot of times where scientists got shit wrong. There's a lot of times where money and politics got tied up into science and corrupted it. There's a lot of times when science was not fashionable. And ideas that were more fashionable became true rather than ones that are actually true. We've come a long way since those things, and it's a lot better now. And there's a lot of people who think that because of that history, science shouldn't be trusted today. But you should always be willing to throw up an eyebrow and ask for some details on something. Matt, I see, is wanting to say a thing.
I think that I've been out of the loop because I've been busy this weekend. I think Erika just posted a video on her own channel talking about like things science got wrong. I haven't watched it yet. I saw the thumbnail and I was like, oh, I want to go watch that, but I've got to go do a show. And so in talking about the things, science is done by humans and humans are biased. And so there's going to be corruption. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be, but the nice thing is that science is self-correcting.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you for all of those. That a lot of what you were saying were like a lot of my questions. I really appreciate. Yeah, this is like, very helpful. I guess, as you can hear from my voice and see from my pronouns, I'm trans feminine, and definitely one thing I'm concerned about when it comes to things is the fact that like my life and who I was considered disordered until relatively recently in scientific history. So that definitely lends me to like potentially be more, I'm not going to use the word skeptical, but more questioning of science than like some of my friends are, who kind of have more of a blind faith towards what is scientific. And I wonder, just like, I've had arguments with friends because I come from like a research background in the humanities, and I'm very aware of like how much bias can be involved in those kind of endeavors. And so I don't know, a lot of what you were saying kind of answered lots of my questions already, but yeah, do you have any thoughts on like how the best way to like, how do we practice this thing that is pointing us in the right direction? How do we practice skepticism of something that is kind of like of facts and these things that are seen as real and true in the world, and yet are not always? If that makes sense.
Yeah. For me, like, I think it's important to like point out the fact, and Matt said this at the very end of what he was just saying, that like science is self-correcting. Science, better science is what leads to better science. And so like, you know, you can look back at like any time that scientists have blown it on something, and even the ways that those things, you know, lead into today. There was a I cannot remember these people's names, but there was in the 70s, I want to say, there was a scientist that I think it was a chemist who demonstrated that eating sugar is what, you know, leads to increased body fat. That's you know, where you get like sugary foods are what's contributing. And there was another dude who was like, nah, it's eating fat. If you eat fat, that's how you get fat. Fat makes you fat. And that was just so much easier to say and so much more popular of a thing that it took off. And that's why we have fat-free foods today. And most fat-free foods taste like shit, so they put extra sugar in them, which is the opposite of what you're trying to do by eating the fat. And like this, it's this thing where even though science has caught up, society hasn't. You have the issue of you know, homosexuality was considered a mental disorder for a long time, and then I think it was also in the 70s or 80s. The better science came along and was like, yo, actually, it turns out this is it. And all of a sudden, all of psychology had to change, and they published a new DSM, and like we had to show that like, oh wow, the millions of people were just cured of a mental disorder that they didn't actually have in the first place, you know. What was it? The Piltdown Man was a hoax. It was a skull that was crafted by some dude, we don't know who still. And all of the anthropologists came out and were like, yes, of course, the missing link between ape and man is a white Englishman who lived here at this time. And all the dentists came out and were like, yo, these teeth aren't right. They're clearly filed down mechanically, and the jaw doesn't match the top of the skull. And all these people were like, shut up, dentists. And like, then it turned out they were all fucking wrong. And so like, there's a million examples of science, or of scientists blowing it, of popular belief blowing it, of bigotry and you know, some sort of phobia or malignancy of compassion, I guess is a good way to say that, a stupid way to say that. Like there's different examples of different factors playing into people being very wrong on a massive scale. But the thing that always came along and fixed that was better science, was going back and checking the assumptions that we were making. And even the things that we knew for sure were true, we go back and double check it, and we're like, oh fuck, it turns out there isn't a lot of reason to believe that. That's why there's this thing, a replicability crisis in psychology that's been going on for a past little while. It's because a lot of psychology experiments, the very big famous ones, were done on university students, which isn't a good representation of the actual population of anywhere. And so either, you know, racially, socioeconomically, mentally, nothing.
Interesting.
And so like, yeah, so that's the thing, man, is that like, especially for the past 30 to 40 years, especially, we've been correcting a lot of false assumptions that we had, and we've been going back and fixing a lot of shit in science. And so you should always be willing to question it, and you should always be willing to ask for more data. You should always go to scholar.google.com and look to see if you can find some sources that are talking about what you're talking about, and don't just find one, and don't just read the abstract.
Yeah.
Find the part where it actually discusses what you're talking about, and then check the citations for that, and go back and check those as well, and just kind of do a little bit of a dive. Always be willing to do these things. And when you don't know, say you don't know. And if you're talking about, you know, you as a trans person, yeah, the science around trans people isn't new. It's about 100 years old, but it's very recently been acceptable to talk about. Similarly, the science around homosexuals isn't anywhere close to new. But like I said, only recently did science finally beat out the kind of puritanical Eurocentric worldview and saying, okay, actually, it's okay to be gay. And like, yeah, I know it's kind of icky. We don't like it, but actually, it's okay. And now we've come a lot farther than that. And we're like, yeah, this is just normal. And so,
if I'm not
science
mistaken,
is
I feel like the
controversial.
science was. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like the scientific, from what I understand of like early like Nazi Germany, like the Nazis specifically wiped out research into trans people, and like that was an intentional effort. Yeah, it's fucked.
Absolutely,
a lot of fucked history.
It was
obviously. Can I ask one more quick question? I think I know Mac's stance on this already, but so can we know anything for sure then? Like that's kind of the crisis I come into sometimes when I think about these things. It's like, so are we all just swimming in what is fundamentally unknown? And obviously I don't want to resort to hard solipsism because that's silly and stupid. But what is your stance on that, Forrest? About like, can we actually know anything when in some ways all facts are up for questioning?
Ultimately, reality is what reality.
Before.
Yeah, ultimately, reality is what reality is. And our job as scientists is to look at reality, see if we can find some patterns, and then draw boxes around those patterns. That doesn't mean the boxes are real, and it doesn't mean that the patterns are real. That's all we can do. And so, at the end of the day, no, you could never ever know anything absolutely super duper for sure. That is the issue of philosophy as a whole. Is it just at the end of the day, no, we for all I know, I could be a brain in a vat being fed chemicals to think this is what's going on right now. Who knows? But we can get damn close. And a Google Earth image is not accurate, but it's a lot better than a shitty map from the 1700s. And it's the same thing with modern science. Isn't true. Everything we know is a little bit wrong, at least. Every model, every theory is wrong. Some of them are useful. But they're a hell of a lot better than what we had, 100 years ago. And they're immeasurably better than what we had 500 years ago. And so we're getting better and better every day. We're getting closer and closer to the truth. We look at fire and finer resolution. And so when you say things like, we can never really know anything for sure. Yeah. But like we're getting off by like a couple of decimal places as opposed to like a few orders of magnitude. You know what I mean? And that's a way bigger difference than people like to give it credit for.
The philosophical issues with respect to certainty aren't relevant to knowledge. Knowledge doesn't require certainty. Even in philosophical definitions of justified true belief, and even in my colloquial usage of knowledge, which is knowledge is belief held to such a high degree of confidence that it would be worldview altering to discover it was wrong. None of those require certainty. There's no demonstration of absolute certainty because the foundations of reason, identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, things like that, they're things that we can't demonstrate, and we would have to assume they were true to try to show they were not true. They seem to be universal, but we can't prove that they're universal. Just like we can't, we infer scientifically, for example, that what's happening on the other side, 6 galaxies or 500 galaxies away, that physics operates the same there as it does here, because there's no reason to presume that it would operate differently. But we can't be absolutely certain about that. But we can be really, really confident. And so the only issue with absolute certainty is a philosophical one. Once you say, within the framework of this reality that I'm interacting with, I can be maximally confident. And if that turns out to be absolutely confident, cool, I have no way of knowing, but I can still be maximally confident. Just like if I flip a fair coin, I can be maximally confident that it's going to either land head side up or tail side up. Or let's just be straight up with it. It's either going to land head side up, tail side up, or on its edge. I can be maximally confident that it's not going to just hover in the air. And when it does, we'll have to investigate why exactly that happened and what was different about it. So I can be, if I flip a coin, I'll bet every dollar in my wallet up against every dollar in anybody else's wallet. As a matter of fact, every dollar I've ever had for the entire history of my life that if you let me grab a coin and flip it, it's going to land here heads up or tails up.
Mm.
That's pretty good confidence for being stuck in a world where I can't have absolute certainty. But you know what? Doesn't matter. What good would it do me to have more certainty than we have? I mean, it might ease some angst I have about not being absolutely certain, but maximal certainty within the system has got to be good enough. And if it's not good enough, it's kind of like, not you, Em, but that's your problem. You're the one that's, suffering from this anxiety about certainty.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective, and I haven't heard anyone articulate it quite like that. I think that's all of my questions. I want to say also, just like I've discovered these kinds of shows during COVID, and really helped me unlearn and process a lot of religious trauma I experienced when I was younger. And you've been a great comfort to me during a lot of depressive times in my life. So thank you both for the work that you do. It's very important.
Thank you.
It's really
really
nice.
happy to be of service, man. That's very kind of you.
Yeah.
All right. We will move on. Appreciate the call, Em.
Take care.
I don't know if she's called in before. It may be. I already lost it. Oh yes, there was another call, but it doesn't say what it was. So I'm almost wondering maybe she called in during Transatlantic or something.
Right.
I feel like I can't remember if I've talked to her before or not. But cool.
Yeah. I was grinning while you were talking. I was trying to hold it because I just read the screener's note on line number 12, and that made me laugh. Also, somebody in the chat made a silly joke that the mating call of a frog is rub it. Just so you know, there's only one species of frog in the world that actually makes a ribbit sound, and that is the Pacific chorus frog, and they are found in Western California, and that's why you know that sound, because in early days of Hollywood, they recorded sounds of frogs, and they were the frogs that were around the studio in Hollywood, California, and now that is just the frog sound that's put in every single goddamn movie forever whenever there's a nighttime scene, especially one involving water, and that's not what all frogs sound like. That's what one frog sounds like, and every single species of frog has a unique mating call, and you have been lied to by Hollywood. The corrupt Hollywood elites want you to believe that all frogs say ribbit, and it's a lie from the devil. And so learn more frog sounds is what I'm saying.
It's like that one it's like that one scream. I forgot what it's called, but it was a scream that was recorded very early in
the Wilhelm scream. Yeah.
Yes. And it just shows up all over the place, and it ends up being used kind of ironically now a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's just kind of a thing that you put in just to put it in. Yeah.
So we, by the way, welcome to the Sunday show. We've taken a couple calls here. We're going to take some more calls. We do have some theists on the line. We have at least two, which I'm going to get to one of them immediately after this little quickie announcement here. But I noticed with the poll that 2% of the 700 and some odd people who bothered to reply to the poll said they were theists who were in fact brave enough to call in. So there should be, at least a couple dozen out there that are ready to call in as well as the two that we've got right now. As far as announcements, let me remind everybody that Forrest is not only did the Sunday show today and is doing the after dark Sunday show with me right now, but Forrest is also going to do Skeptalk tomorrow. You and Jesse are both back for that, right?
Yep, going to be me and Jesse again.
Sweet. That means I didn't get to listen to the show or watch the show on the way down, and so I heard good stuff. And I'm not familiar with Jesse, but so I'm looking forward to catching up on the earlier show and on Skeptalk tomorrow. Tuesdays, Chewed Gum is going to be Alyssa Ljub, and I don't have a partner with her yet. Wednesdays, Hang Up is going to be possibly Jimmy and Paul, because I'm flying out to have oral surgery, and I'm going to have a couple of oral surgeries, but I'm going to miss this Wednesday, and then I'll be back, and I'll be doing the Sunday show, the regular Sunday show at 2:00. And then Transatlantic Call-In Show on Thursday is going to be Arden and Luxander. Do you have any announcements we need to get to before we get to the next call?
Jesse and I have raised almost $14,000 for Doctors Without Borders through our show Roll for Initiative, and you should go check that out if you're into TTRPG gaming, or if you're not into TTRPG gaming but you want to save some lives all around the world, because Doctors Without Borders are helping in crisis zones all around the world and putting their own lives at stake to do so. If you care about the genocide in Palestine, or if you care about the fights going on in Bangladesh, or if you care about the humanitarian crises of Yemen, Congo, Sudan, the war in Ukraine, anything else, everywhere, donate to Doctors Without Borders, because they're really, really cool people. And do so using our link, because if you do so using our link, we can track it, and we can use that as marketing to get more sponsors to do more cool fundraisers.
Cool. All right. We have Brent calling in from Illinois. Brent's a theist, no pronoun preference. Wants to talk a little bit about light and darkness. So, Brent, you're on with Forrest and Matt. How are you? Oh, Brent, if you're on your phone has probably gone to sleep while you were waiting, and you'll need to tap it because you're using the web client. You'll have to tap it to wake it up so we can hear you.
There we go.
Okay, yeah, I'm blessed and highly favored. Thank you for asking. How are you guys doing?
Blessed and
whatever
highly
the
favored.
atheist
How
version
do
of
you
that
know
is.
either of those are true? But okay.
That's what
Maybe.
I always say when someone asks me how I'm doing. I tell them that I'm blessed and highly favored.
Yeah, I just wonder how you know that either of those are true. But since that's not necessarily what you called into, let's get to what you called into, and maybe we'll come back to that. But you wanted to talk about light and darkness?
Yeah, so I was kind of wanting to see like your guys' viewpoints on light and darkness. Like, you know, in the beginning, you know, there was light, and God saw the light, and it was good. And then,
No.
you know, on a science
That's a
level,
story. That's a story
okay.
that I don't believe. So I don't know why it makes any difference what, you know, one
Okay,
holy book says about the beginning. What is
let's
it?
talk
What is
about-
it? What is it? What is it about light and darkness that you wanted to get to?
Well, maybe like on a science level. So like, they've just done like new science, about like looking at an embryo, and there's light, at the moment of conversation at the beginning of life. And so I was just wanting to know like
What light?
points on light and the
So
darkness.
for clarity, I want Forrest to address this. What Brent is
Yeah.
saying, and Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, is that somehow scientists have looked at the moment of conception and they saw light.
Right.
I'm just gonna Google really quick. So this is from an article that was back in 2016. They're talking about the I think it's called the acrosome reaction. I think it's a specific chemical reaction when the sperm actually is able to penetrate through the zona pellucida of an egg. And zinc is released from the egg. It binds to a small molecule, which emits a tiny bit of fluorescence. Fluorescence microscopy experiments have seen that there's a tiny, tiny bit of light released as that zinc basically makes a spark. The exact same way, like when you strike a flint, you're not breaking off pieces of the rock, you're breaking off pieces of iron, which then bonds with oxygen, and it's exothermic, and it makes a little spark. And so this is this thing that human eggs emit a tiny little spark, basically, from zinc when there's this reaction. That's what he's talking about. Is that we're on the same page then?
Yeah. And
Okay.
so yeah, I'm relating that to like a light in the darkness, or Jesus is the light. And so the light itself is light.
Okay, here's a million issues what you just said, though. First of all,
because when you say the light itself is light, that's just a tautology. Light, of course, light's light.
I think he said light is life.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's
but
not true.
Right, that the light that is emitted by that little zinc reaction is just that. It's just a thing that happens because chemistry is a thing, the same way striking a flint. And also that happens then, if that's the way that it's working, it's not just going to be a human egg thing. That's going to happen with like damn near every, if not every animal egg. And so like that's not particularly special. And to say, well, Jesus said, I'm the light, I guarantee that means something very different. And God saying, let there be light, I guarantee means something very different. And basically what you're doing here, light is a very common theme in the Bible. And you're just looking for like one little thing that kind of sounds like a bunch of Bible things and saying, therefore it's true. That doesn't count as evidence for a God.
Like a Bible thing would actually be talking about the darkness when it symbolizes the arrogance and the separation from God. And so for those that can't be receptive or have a hardened heart, they're in darkness.
Yeah. So metaphor doesn't get us anywhere. You realize that
that's
metaphor and poetry, you can't then spin that and pretend that it's literal and means what you think it means.
Right. But it's not metaphor. That's what it is. For
Well,
one
what's
to
not
accept-
metaphor?
but
Um,
if that was the case, if we're saying
Right.
that a human egg and a human sperm are in darkness because they're inside a person, and
Right.
then they fuse and there's a little flash of light, then immediately after that, it would be darkness again. So is there no longer God afterwards because there's dark? Do all sperm exist in a godless state because they have not fused to an egg yet and created a zinc light? Like it's what you're saying is just there's light sometimes, and the Bible says stuff about light. So God, that's all I'm hearing from this argument so far.
Right. Yeah, it's not an argument. I just kind of wanted to see, a different perspective or observe, a different way of thinking, of
Brent.
like,
Yeah. This really isn't the show where people call in and quiz us for a different perspective, although we're happy to offer it on occasion. What we really want is for people to demonstrate the truth of their beliefs. And so you're calling in to say that, oh, hey, look, when you read the Bible, Jesus is referred to as the light of the world. And then if you go back to Genesis 1, it talks about light and everything else.
right.
None of that. What do you think is the significance of that? Because there's no way that, for example, Genesis 1:1,
Okay.
God created the sky and the earth, boom. But it's verse 3 where he says, let there be light, and the light began to shine. So if God created light in verse 3, then it didn't exist prior to verse 3, right?
Correct.
Cool. So the story is that God created light. The question we have is, what evidence do you have that God created light?
Right. The evidence is the faith itself of things not seen.
No,
So
that's not evidence.
So
That's, Brent,
I don't.
faith is not
either.
evidence. Faith is the excuse people give when they believe things without evidence. If you have evidence, you don't ever say that it's an issue of faith. You just present the evidence. So what
Right.
evidence is there that God created light?
The evidence is all around me. I can see the light. I can see the beauty. I can see.
Brent, I don't
So-
need you to say, Brent, I don't need you to say
Right.
I don't need you to say the evidence is all around me. I need you, tell me what the evidence is. Because if I said, Brent, I have mountains of evidence that Forrest is stupid, and you said, what's the evidence? And I'm like, it's all around me. Have I told you anything at all?
Right. Well, the evidence is.
Have I told you anything at all?
Have you told me anything at all?
If I say the evidence is all around me, does that tell you anything at all about the evidence that I think shows that Forrest is stupid?
No.
There's a lot.
Cool.
There's a lot of
Then why, when I asked you for evidence, did you say the evidence is all around instead of telling me something that's actual evidence? So let's try again. What evidence can you present that there is a God who created light?
By the word of my testimony and
No,
seeing
sir.
it.
No, sir. That
So,
is
let me
not
try-
evidence that a God has done anything. That is the claim. You sitting here telling me that you're convinced is not evidence of the claim.
So the evidence.
Let me try
is
something a little bit different,
What?
because Brent, it sounds like what they're saying is that like their testimony alone, the faith that they have alone, is somehow demonstrating that this God is real, and therefore everything that they say about them is real. Brent, let me ask you directly. There are a lot of Hindus in this world that believe in a multitude of different gods that are incompatible with your God, and they all have faith and they all have testimony about their gods. Is that evidence that in fact their gods are the ones that created the world and that created light and all these things, and not yours?
I believe that we should respect those decisions of others because
That's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked you.
accordingly to his faith.
At this point, Brent, we're having a
Brent,
very
hold on.
difficult time believing that you are for real because you are refusing to address
we can source
what
it out right now.
either Forrest have said honestly.
But yeah, Brent, let me just, what did I just ask you? What was the question that I asked?
I'm sorry, I wasn't really sure on the interpretation because there's been so much confusion.
Okay, so you're not listening then, because I asked you a very direct question. So I'm going to ask you the question one more time, and if you don't answer it directly, then I think we're good to move on. Matt, do you agree?
Cool.
Okay, so Brent, the question that I asked you, and again, if you don't give me a direct answer, we're going to assume that you're not serious. We're going to move on. The question is, you said that your testimony and your faith are evidence for a God. We're saying there are plenty of Hindus out there that have faith and testimony about their gods, which are different than yours. Do you think that their testimony and their faith is evidence that your God does not exist and their gods do?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm not in line or in agreement with their faith.
Okay, I'm not in line with your faith. I'm not in line with your faith. So why should I think that your testimony is any sort of evidence for me to believe in your God?
Because each one gets judged accordingly. You are going to be judged for you and what you say at your idle words. I will be judged accordingly for what I say. And
yes, we will all be judged. Yes, we will all be judged by Anubis. When we are taken to the underworld, he will weigh our heart against a feather. The ancient Egyptian mythology is very clear about what the god Anubis is going to do and how he's going to judge us. And that is the faith that I'm espousing, and I have evidence for it because I have testimony for it. Do you believe me, and does that matter to you?
It does matter to me because it hurts me that
it matters that Anubis?
Well, honestly, because that's not necessarily what I feel is the truth. And so I just want to
Brent, what we're trying to do, Brent, listen, what we're trying to do, we understand that you have beliefs and that you think those beliefs are true. Just like we have beliefs and we think those beliefs are true, and other people have different beliefs that they think are true. We want you to demonstrate why we should believe that your beliefs are true.
Mm-hmm.
Because the wages of sin is death.
Fuck
I have a heavy
right. Well, hold on. Don't drop them yet, because the Quran says the same thing. The Quran explains explicitly that if you are not a Muslim, that you're going to go to hell. It's very clear. So why aren't you afraid of that, Brent? Why aren't you a Muslim? Because the Quran is very clear about it.
Well, I'm not a Muslim because that's not what I believe in.
Right,
Brent,
but even though it says that you'll go to hell and you'll die and all this stuff if you're not a Muslim, so why not change your mind?
Because I'm steadfast in my own belief in which do you
think that you telling us that we're going to die and go to hell and all these things means anything to us if we don't think your God is real and hell is real and all this other stuff?
It should mean something to you because there has to be someone to be the light in the darkness.
You're so full of shit, Brent.
I'm telling you,
it's
Krishna.
I'm
Krishna
tired
is
of
the light
you.
in the darkness.
I'm tired of you, Brent, giving Christians and Christianity a bad name by being one of the worst possible defenders of the faith with garbage assertions and a complete inability to speak honestly and present actual evidence. All you're doing is blabbing.
Well, I'm apologizing that you feel that way. Again, there's been a lot of...
I need you to apologize. I need you to fucking answer a question and present evidence and be honest. What we've tried to do here is say, you keep saying what you believe and how it's important that we believe it too. Forrest and I will believe what you believe if you can present sufficient evidence to justify that belief. Can you do that? I think the answer is no.
The answer is yes.
Cool.
By the word of my
right now, without further delay, present sufficient evidence for Forrest and I to believe in your God right now.
And when he doesn't do that, don't drop him. I have one more thing.
Okay.
Okay. it's for the simple fact of whenever my call was screening and I chose not to use my pronouns, the screener said that I shouldn't get defensive, and I wasn't being defensive. I feel like if a man doesn't stand for something, fall for anything.
Wait,
And
you're a
that's
man? You're a man? You're a man?
How do we
Yeah.
know?
How do I know you're a man?
Right. What, because I didn't use my pronouns?
No, because you said you didn't have preferred pronouns. So why it wouldn't be wrong for me to refer to you as she, her, right?
I've been using
guess.
they most of the time to be safe.
That's how all the confusion on that.
I tell you what, Forrest, you
Yeah,
can go ahead and talk to her. I'll wait.
Yeah, I'm not interested in going too much farther because you just asked why should we believe in your God, and Brent said, well, because the screener asked for my pronouns, and that's very funny to me. But like, I want to be very clear, Brent. Like, I'm kind of, it's very clear that you're not being serious, and so like I just want to get across to you just in case you actually think that what you're saying makes any kind of sense here. Go back and rewatch this call, and you'll be frustrated by the fact that we interrupted you a lot. We have. But the reason why is because consistently over the course of this call, you have said, I believe that this God is real. And we'll say, okay, why? And you'll say, because it is. And we'll say, well, what about this other God? And you say, that's not real. And we ask why? And you say, because it's not this God. This God is real. How do you know this God is real? Because it is. Well, what about this other God? Well, that God's not real because this God's real. That over and over. I brought up Anubis. I brought up Allah. I brought up Krishna. I brought up all sorts of other gods and their traditions. And you said, I don't believe in those. Why not? Because I know this one's real. How do you know it's real? Because my faith, because I believe it. And it's like over and over, you've just said, I believe because I believe, because I believe, because I believe, because I believe. And you've yet to give any real evidence for anything. I'm a biologist. If I'm out here talking about biology and I say cells make up living things, and someone says, why do you think that? Would it be reasonable for me to say, because I believe it? And what if they say, well, what about some other thing? What if things aren't made of cells? Well, I don't believe that because I believe that cells make things. That wouldn't make any sense. That would be a stupid thing for me to say. So for you to sit here and say, I don't believe any other religion because it's not my religion, and I do believe my religion because it's my religion, it doesn't tell us anything, and it's not helpful. Do you understand that?
Yeah, I understand that that's the interpretation that you had. It's not that I don't believe in other religions.
Brent,
I respect.
This was not an interpretation.
You said
this was not the interpretation we have. That's what actually happened.
Right.
So here's the thing, Brent. Do you talk to Jesus?
Yes, I have an intimate relationship.
Hang on. That was a yes or no question. Just answer the question I asked you, and this will go so much more smoothly. Does Jesus talk to you?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm disobedient, and my prayers go up in hindrance.
Did you ask Jesus if you should call into the show as a representative of Jesus?
No, I need to be bold as a lion and be unashamed
That's still a yes or no question, Brent.
Naughty.
So you didn't even ask Jesus if you should call in and be a representative of Jesus. What if you're such a bad representative of Jesus that Jesus is now even more mad at you? What if this is your act of disobedience and you have done harm to Christianity?
Because I believe obedience is better than sacrifice. And
no,
so
I said, what if, Brent, are you fucking capable of listening to a fucking question and answering the fucking question you were fucking asked, yes or no?
Yes.
Then, if you didn't ask Jesus, what happens if you have done harm to Christianity by your actions here today?
Then I will be judged. I will be judged accordingly to my idle words.
Yeah, I'm judging you right now. And everybody in the audience is judging you right now. And this clip will live on forever where people will be judging you right now. At whatever time somebody's watching this, they're going to be judging you right now. Do you think that any of them are going to say, Brent really presented strong evidence and argument for Christianity?
Yeah, I believe that there'll be other
people. You're so
that
full of shit. Goodbye. There was
I wanted to
zero
ask
evidence
Brent.
and zero. What's that?
You're fine. I wanted to ask Brent why God has preferred pronouns if he doesn't. That's what I wanted to get to. I wanted to ask Brent, why does God say, I am he?
I thought I already stayed past the point where you said.
No, it's okay. It's okay. No, you did stay past the point where I wanted to ask one more thing, and I asked it. But then while you were talking that last moment, that's where I wanted to.
With another
that's all
one.
I could think of. Yeah, I came up with
I was
another
just
one.
sitting here going, it's so funny because, so first of all, if you're out there and you're a theist, and I realize not all theists are Christians. Not all theists believe that, that there's a God that wants them to proselytize, that they're following the Great Commission. It's not all like that. But if you're somebody, I'm sorry, President Starscream, my judgment's the only one that matters. Between my judgment and God's judgment, my judgment is the only judgment that has ever been demonstrated to actually matter at all. If you want to pretend that you have a God whose judgment actually matters more than mine, prove it. Call in, buck up. But until then, I fucking exist and my judgment has consequences. I don't believe that your God or any God could give me so much as a hangnail with their judgment. I have zero fear of any of them. They keep, if in fact they exist, they keep sending the weakest possible defenders to try to convince me that they exist. And that you're going to say, my judgment doesn't matter. My judgment's the only fucking judgment that matters when it comes down to my judgment or God's judgment. And until somebody demonstrates otherwise, that's a fact in reality. Should be in the Library of Congress. Read more about reality and judgment in your library. Sweet.
I'm looking up I see was line number 21. I think I know what they're talking about. And so I'm just double checking. Yeah, but I don't know.
Well, while you're hitting that up, I went ahead and took Giddy in Utah. Giddy, pronouns him, has a question about religious people being ethical. Sorry.
Hi, Matt. Sorry, yeah. So I had called earlier today and chatted with I can't forget I'm forgetting his name, and I'm
Jesse.
I was starstruck by him. No, Forrest.
Was it Jesse and Forrest? Because I'm one of those people.
Yeah. Okay, I have ADHD, as I said before. Okay.
It's okay. No, I trust me. I understand.
Did you say it before?
Okay.
I missed it.
He said it when he was on the phone with me.
Oh wait, he called earlier?
Yeah, he called the Sunday show with me and Jesse.
Okay. Well, I didn't know.
Jessiest of Jerdax. Good day to you. Okay. Good to talk to you again.
Well, you told me to. So
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, if you can remember, I barely do because it's been an hour and a half.
I don't remember anything. Just start from scratch with Matt, because I want to hear what Matt has to say about your question, because I have an answer, but I think Matt has probably a more interesting one.
Well,
okay.
Now the pressure's on. Go ahead, Giddy.
No. Okay. Wow, pressure's on. I have ADHD and anxiety now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyway,
that's what I'm here for.
I might not have caused them, but I know how to amplify them, and for that I'm sorry, because it's not the intent.
Oh gosh. Anyway, let's get this train wreck back on track. So yes, in the Sunday show, I had called and asked about me as a Mormon trying to be scientifically minded and socially ethical as a member of a church. So by that I mean,
I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. Congratulations.
Yeah, and so like we said that that religion causes harm by its very existence, and that religious thinking is harming you. And we mentioned, you said you try to be a good person, and we were like, yeah, but if you're tithing in the Mormon Church, you're still donating to an organization that's doing a lot of bad things. And you said you weren't tithing right now, but you would if you could. And like that's a problem. And there's other ways in which your religious thinking could impact the people around you negatively, and at the very least, it's affecting you negatively. That I remember was the kind of the breadth of the end of the discussion there. That's kind of where we left things. And so now you're calling to ask if any person can be ethical while being religious. Is that like kind of that's the extension of what we're talking about?
Yeah, if you could just, you are good at this. You should get a raise.
Right. I should tell Jimmy.
Oh, okay.
Hashtag give
In
Forrest a
any
raise.
case, so Getty,
La-
there
yeah.
are religions that aren't necessarily tied to anything unreal, and they're not tied to anything supernatural, not tied to any gods, that have ethical foundations. As a matter of fact, secular humanism was originally, I mean, you read the very first secular humanist manifesto, it was presented as a sort of secular religion. And so on that front, I think it's obvious that somebody could be religious and ethical. There's also, the people who are part of the ethical society and stuff like that. There are possibly ways for people in more kind of orthodox religions to, thank you, to be mostly ethical. I guess the question is, it would depend on what religion it is and where it might be getting in the way. But since none of us are going to be perfectly ethical, I know people who are part of religions who are more ethical and better people than some of my atheist associates. And so I don't find that the religion necessarily always inhibits someone's ethics, but it certainly can. When you prioritize your religion and your religion's concept of how you should act over actually caring about people and what the actual harm is to people, when you prioritize the religion, then it's going to get in the way. But there may be ways for some people in some religions to kind of set that aside, especially the more fuzzy the religion, like, hey, I think the universe is God. Well, that's not really a religion. Well, I think that God is love. Well, that's not really religion either. But if I built a religion out of God is love, and we're, doing this thing, and we make it something that's not just performative, then I think it's possible for people to have a religious worldview that is still ethical. And I don't know that the failings in that are any less likely under secular humanists and atheists, because it's about people being people. There's an old quote from Weinberg, I believe it is, that said, without religion, good people would do good things and bad people would do bad things. It takes something like religion to get good people to do bad things. And so what that means to me is not that religion necessarily forces good people to be bad, but that it can, and it's easy to do, and that risk is always there.
Okay. This may be my ADHD talking or my autism that I'm in denial of having speaking. I totally misjudged you. I thought you'd be quite a jerk, and that was succinctly put, like, well said.
I could be.
Matt's a
also,
really nice
like,
guy,
you're-
as long as you answer questions directly and don't bullshit around God.
okay. That's holy cow. What the frick? I spent like I actually kind of dislike you right now, because I spent like 30 minutes just like thinking and writing a script and practicing.
Just to be ready for him to be a sweet, kind gentleman.
It's all right.
Be mean to this
I
man.
wish I wasn't. I wish I wasn't Mormon.
If you've
so I
watched
could curse
certain
at you.
highlights and things like that, I get it, and I don't mind. If somebody's angry with me because I was nicer than they expected, I'm fat, dumb, and happy. But the reality is that while religions are problematic because they prioritize, like, for example, different versions of Christianity prioritize an afterlife over life. I can't do that. And I think it's unethical to prioritize an afterlife over life, because this is the one and only life I know I'm going to get. If there's an afterlife, it's a bonus. And I have no reason to think that this life and an afterlife, if one exists, have any sort of connection. And so if the religion gets me to prioritize things over the facts of reality, that's where the ethics can break down. But people can be good. And this is where you get the people who are like, yes, I'm a Catholic, but I don't agree with the Catholic position on this. Yes, I'm a Baptist, but I don't agree with Baptists on this. Yes, I'm a Mormon, but I don't agree with Mormons on this. I mean, for how many years were Mormons running around saying, I'm a Mormon, but I don't agree with the church's position on black folks, until the church actually changed it. And so you can have good people that fundamentally even change the religion. And somebody commented today on something that we were I forget what the actual post was about religion and whether or not it can be good, or I forget the exact context there. But I was like, it's secular humanism. It is secular values that have moved Christianity and other religions. There would be no impetus for them to change from their dogmatic ways if it weren't for the fact that the world around them changed and they had to adapt. And it's the religions that are the best at adapting that are the ones that are going to survive, which is why I hate to tell you this, Katie, but right after Scientology goes away, Mormonism's next, because when you stack up the versions of religion in the order of most assumptions or most ridiculous or least evidence for or most evidence against, Mormonism's way up there. I mean, there's a reason why South Park lampooned it and they built an entire musical out of it. But it doesn't say that's completely separate from whether or not you can be an ethical person in a broad sense. We're all going to get stuff wrong.
Okay. In that case, I guess I have to go to my backup questions if there's still time.
Go for it.
There's a little bit, yeah.
Okay. So yes, why am I forgetting your name? I fangirled over you.
Forrest, Matt,
Jesse.
Yeah.
Matt.
Sorry. Yeah.
I'm Jesse Cherdak.
Jesse. So, no. Anyway, so I think you mentioned in that last call that even if I wasn't paying tithing, which I'm not, and also let me clarify, when I said that I would pay tithing, I did say that I would question how the heck I got there, because at the current moment I would not, because I see that the church supports anti-trans syllabled words that I'm trying to complete the sentence with.
I get you.
Where before I donated because I used the mental health services and stuff like that. So yes, I potentially would, but I'd have to be convinced. So, and I can see myself doing that, because guess what? That's part of deconstruction. This back and forth amalgamation of, all the stuff. So I guess my question would be, I still go to church because I like having friends, and that community is solid, and I surround myself with like-minded individuals. My goodness, multi-syllabled words. But you said that even if I wasn't paying tithe, or that it would be inherently hurtful for me to be in religion. And I think you also mentioned that it would paint my votes and my opinions and how I view people. And I just wanted you to expound on that, how it would innately hurt me, I guess.
Because at the end of the day, so like the most benign form of religious belief still requires you to be, using supernatural thinking, to be, sacrificing your own critical thought in order to give room for supernatural ideas. And we actually have another call on the line that wanted to ask about this. This is a perfect build up for that. It causes you to give credibility to things that you should be incredulous towards. It necessitates that even like if you're a religious scientist, you're having to have a different part of your brain dedicated to religious thought, dedicated to every part of the universe. Every single thing you think and do is like, this is something I have evidence for. This is something I have backup for. This is something that I have a reason to believe. And then also there's magic, and like that kind of thing is a problem because it not only is it hindering you, but it also opens the door for more problems. If someone can make you believe absurdities, they can make you commit atrocities. If you look at like I don't want to just point to like horrible religious organizations, but you can point to pretty much phrase it this way. There is no good thing that a religious person can do because of their religion that an atheist wouldn't also do just because they want to do good things. However, there are near innumerable terrible things that religious people do, have done, and continue to do because of their religious belief that an atheist would never do because of their atheism. In a normal universe, in a normal, everyday, orderly thing, good people do good things, bad people do bad things. But if you want good people to do bad things, give them religion, and you can do that very easily. So it's just setting you up to be manipulated further because it's creating this hole, this pitfall in your mind that is, just you're allowing yourself to be manipulated in that way, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to be a little bit more gentle with this concept than I normally would be. Just I'm trying new things. So forgive me if I'm stumbling a little bit about words and whatnot. But I also I'm looking at this thing that somebody just put in the comments here that I want to deal with. But yeah, that's all. Sorry, I'm a little distracted right now. I also believe I have ADHD. I'm pretty sure.
And I haven't been tested, but we might have 3 people with ADHD here.
Yeah, let's start a support group and meet up tomorrow eventually.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Anyway, okay, so from what I'm gathering, Matt made the case for an individualistic, whatever, humanistic, fancy word, and you're making an argument against an organized religious sect and church.
No, not even an organized one. If you are allowing yourself to believe in things without good evidence for them, you are doing harm to yourself. I think you are giving opening the door for more bullshit thinking to come in that will lead you down the path of doing silly things. What I am about to say is a slippery slope fallacy, and I know that I am being hyperbolic on purpose. If you believe that there are, that there are such things as potions out there, and that you're allowing yourself to think that people have been cured by miracle wonder drugs and shit like that, you allow for supernatural belief that the certain witch doctors or whatever can whip up a concoction that can cure whatever disease, something like that, then you could potentially fall down the trap of also believing that you can drink something and that could be really hurtful to you, like that person who drank a gallon of soy sauce thinking that it was going to cleanse their body of toxins and fucking wound up in the hospital, probably died because of the insane salt intake. That's a real case study. I don't remember the details, but like you'll end up doing more shit that falls in line with that belief that would be really hurtful, that wouldn't happen if you were demanding evidence of the claims of this person drank this thing and got better. Why? How are we sure it's the thing? What's in the thing that did the thing? And then you become a pharmacist rather than somebody who believes in alchemy. Again, sure. I am deliberately doing a slippery slope fallacy and like way bringing that down just to kind of get the point across of what I'm talking about. That like, if you believe some silly shit on purpose and you allow yourself to, and you don't fact check yourself on things like that, then you're more likely to believe other silly shit and not fact yourself on other silly shit, which is going to cause harm to you or somebody else down the line. That's all I'm trying to drive to.
As somebody in chat referenced, as Stevie Wonder said, when you believe in things that you don't understand and you suffer, superstition ain't the way.
That's true. That's true.
Okay. So 2 questions. Who's Stevie Wonder? And
he's a musician. He's a musician, or he was. I think he's dead.
Oh my goodness! Now I'm sad.
Stevie Wonder's not dead. He's one of the greatest musicians of all time, or at least I don't think he's dead. I don't mean this to be remotely offensive at all, Giddy, but this is for my own reference. Giddy, how old are you? Just for my own reference.
33 and 10 months.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out at what age somebody is unlikely to know who Stevie Wonder is.
Look
this
up
is just a test to
Superstition
see
by
if you
Stevie
had-
Wonder.
See how you're raised. If you're not allowed to listen to secular music and stuff like that, that could be.
That's also true. Look up the song Superstition by Stevie Wonder. And when you stop dancing, then you'll understand.
Yes.
Okay. Y'all have ADHD. That just proved it.
Probably. Probably.
Okay.
Okay.
There has been
I'm fine with it.
like 3 different occasions where I've said that I don't know if I do, and someone has cut me off in the middle of that sentence to tell me that I absolutely do.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we have another call that's actually in the same vein. So if it's cool with you, Matt, I think we should probably head that way. Yeah.
I think you're probably correct there. Thanks so much,
Giddy.
Giddy.
I appreciate you calling in.
Reach out another
All
time.
right, yeah, have fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye. By the
You
way,
talking about like 14?
I was talking about line 25.
25 it is.
But
Kyle in
really quickly
Illinois,
before we
you're
get
on.
there, God damn
Wait.
you! I was just gonna say, the person who in the chat, William, said that he'd send a $10 thing to me through like Cash App or something like that if I'll wear a silly wig for something. Go to Roll for Initiative and donate it to Doctors Without Borders. Send the money there, and when that happens, I'll wear a silly wig for a call. Now, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kyle, with I'm sure was a very important question.
You're all right. I actually hopped onto the live earlier.
Yeah, I remember you. Yeah. You were the one.
Okay.
I was pretty sure that you had not talked to atheists before because the questions you were asking were kind of like new, and you were saying that this is your first time talking about us.
Man, for sure, yes.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm glad you called in because you asked some really good questions for somebody who's starting to like explore outside of like their bubble, and I really appreciate that, and that makes me very happy.
For
Oh,
sure,
no.
and to go along with that, I do have a couple atheist friends at work, but they believe in the whole stoned ape thing. So if that tells you much.
I believe in what?
The
Stoned ape
theory.
hypothesis, the idea that humans, that our human ancestors just got high and did a bunch of mushrooms and shit, and that caused them to take more risks and things that eventually led to human evolution being what it is. And it's one of those things that's it's like the aquatic ape shit where it's like, yeah, okay, this sounds really funny, but like honestly, you could never go back and test this, and like it's just something that people say, you know what I mean?
This is the Terrence McKenna stuff.
It's him or Paul Stamens or something like that, where it was some shit that somebody said on Joe Rogan.
Just for the record, just for the record, I don't have any problem with the idea that some of our ancestors did drugs and had epiphanies. I think that's happened throughout the entirety, but I don't think that is the explanation for every religious thought, or I mean, it's probably the inspiration for some of them. We watch it happen. But anyway, Kyle, what was your question? I'm sorry for the distraction.
My question is theistic, looking at an atheistic point of view. Why is religion more of a con than a pro?
Because it can't demonstrate that it's true.
Yeah, I talked about it a lot on the last call. I don't know how much of you heard, but just to summarize, is that it's something that is undemonstrable, something that isn't proven to be real, that people are believing in based on faith. And faith, as Matt alluded to earlier on in the thing, faith is just the reason that you give, the excuse that you give to believe something that you don't actually have evidence for.
Or and so in our even in bullshit until you actually believe it.
Exactly, yeah. And so when you do that, Kyle, it opens the door for you to be duped by more things. Matt, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Kyle, you're a part of some religion right now, or some religion in the past, right?
I subscribe to Christianity.
Sure. But so if you're a Christian, then you look at all the other religions as a con, right?
I have dabbled in all of them, and then it seemed to always lead me back.
But okay.
We get what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Taking it in the spirit that it was rendered. But you found one, and you looked at the other ones as more con than pro, right?
I see more pro in Christianity, how it's not what we can do, it's what he did.
It's so weird that I'm trying to ask the easiest fucking question that really drills to the heart of this, and you are avoiding it. When you decided that Christianity was more pro, doesn't that mean you decided all the others were more con than pro?
Yes, sir. Yes, I
Cool.
apologize.
All we're doing is saying we agree with you, Kyle. We agree with you
That's
on
true.
all of them except for yours. And for some reason, you know, we're in agreement. I care about what's true, and neither Christianity nor any other religion that I am aware of has done anything to demonstrate its truth. If it were true, I would believe that it was true, even though I may not necessarily be a worshiper of a particular God. I may not be a
Right.
participant of a particular religion, but if they could demonstrate that it's true, I would be that way. But for the sake of, for example, biblical Christianity, the Bible is an absolute train wreck of immorality, confusion, anti-science, sexist, racist, garbage. And so if the Bible is what people are basing a religion on, I have lots of reasons to oppose it. But the biggest one, which I said at the beginning, is it hasn't demonstrated that it's true.
I can try and give one example of how it would be more of a pro than a con.
No,
Sure. And
you're
then
not,
what
you're
do
not
you
paying
do?
attention, Kyle. I don't
Well, I
look
would
at
be fine with that.
religions. I don't look at religions and say, what are the pros? What are the cons? Let me pick the one that's more pro than con. I don't give a fuck which one's more pro than con. I care which one is true. So
Now you did
listing
get
off why
the reason.
listing off why you think one religion is better than another does absolutely nothing to demonstrate why it's true.
But you
That is a good point. Is that
you had just given me
Sorry,
a
go ahead.
reason why it was more of a con, though.
Well, I think what Matt's trying to allude to here, what Matt's trying to get across, is that like all religions have sufficient cons. The concept of religion on its own has sufficient cons to not buy into it in the first place. So it's not which one is best. It's that all of them are harmful and you don't need any of them. So why do it? It's like saying, like, I had to pick
What type
which
of
hard
cancer do
drug
you
to
want?
start to. Yeah, I was going to say drugs, but yeah, exactly. It's like saying, well,
That's
at the
what
end of the
that's
day,
That's where I was gonna go because I did have a meth addiction
Yeah.
before.
yeah, and so like it's like saying, well, you could do meth or you could do heroin. I guess, if I weigh it, I guess meth's a little better because it doesn't have. You could just do neither. It'd be better to do neither. Neither is best. And so, like with religions, like you're sitting here saying, well, if I believe Christianity, there's a little bit of benefit and there's not as many negatives. Why have any of it? Why not just say there's no reason to believe in any of this stuff? None of it has met its burden of proof. None of it has given me the same reason to believe in it that I would believe in absolutely anything else ever. And so I'm not going to waste my time and my energy believing in something that doesn't make any sense, worshiping a God that isn't worth worshiping, even if he's real. I'm instead just going to enjoy my life and be a happy person and try to make the best out of the time that I have on this planet.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I also, by the way, I saw the donation ticker went up $10, so I now look like a Fraggle for the rest of this call. I hope you're into that, Kyle.
I'm all for it. I don't know. I just really wanted to call because Matt, I watch you a lot, and then I watch Aron Ra a lot, and Aron Ra actually here recently I had heard him talking about, I think it's in Hosea, where they rebelled against God, so he ordered that pregnant women be ripped open, and I'm like, oh fuck, what the fuck am I subscribed to? So then it just came to me that is why Jesus came, to save us from that. So it's like, okay, godly feared back into it, just because I can't help what I believe. Unfortunately, it just makes
True.
sense to me. It just makes sense to me, man. It's just so simple and easy.
I agree. I agree that you can't help with what you believe, and I also agree that it is a lot easier just to think the thing. But like, just have you heard I think Matt's made this analogy before, but like it's like a mafia boss. Where somebody goes in, they want to say, you have to pay protection money. You have to pay me to protect you from what I'm gonna do to you if you don't pay me to protect you. If you don't pay me the protection money, I'm gonna come in here and smash up your store. So pay me
Right.
to protect you from me. And that's exactly what you're offering here, is like, this God is so horrific. He's ordering genocide. He's ordering women be cut open and babies ripped out of their stomachs. He's ordering like all these terrible things. He's going to send you to hell to burn for all eternity unless you worship him and pay him the prayers, and then he'll protect you from what he's going to do to you if you don't do that. Like, does that not just sound like racketeering?
I have a question for Matt on something I had heard from a previous podcast that actually involves his mother.
I'd like you to answer my question
well,
first.
Hold off, Kyle. You need to answer Forrest's question.
Okay.
I bet you don't know what it was.
Just summarize. I smoke weed, so I did forget.
Me too, but not
okay.
yet today. I'm gonna be a stoned ape in a couple hours when we're done with this.
Nice. I was asking, like, isn't God like a mafia boss saying you need to pay me to protect you from what I'm gonna do if you don't pay me to protect you? He's saying, believe in me, or I'm going to punish you. But if you believe in me, and I'll forgive you, and I'll spare you the punishment that I'm going to give you.
It sounds brutal. Yes.
Does it sound wrong? Does it sound like not what you believe?
I'm on the winning team, if you will. So I mean, I have nothing to worry about.
Unless Islam is true, or unless Hinduism is true, or unless any of the other countless religions are true. There's over 3,000 denominations of Christianity alone. So even if you're a Christian, there's 2,999 other versions of Christianity, which you're not on the winning team of if one of those is true.
But wouldn't you guys agree that hell was later added to the Bible anyways?
Yeah.
What? Wow.
The version of hell that we talk about now.
It's like you skipped past everything substantive and went to something else. So I'm going to let you ask me about my mother. But before I do, I'm going to ask you this question and see if I get an answer. Because you said it just makes sense to me. Well, if something makes sense to me, that means that the best logical assessment of the best available evidence is consistent with the model. And if something makes sense to me, I can explain it. So you've picked a version of Christianity. What is your soteriology, and how did you determine that it's correct? What must you do to be saved, and how do you know you're right?
I can only reference the Bible, and I don't think you want that.
No, here's the problem. As
That's
Forrest was
fair.
just mentioning, there are 1,000 denominations of Christianity. They're all built on the Bible. You've made a decision about one that makes sense and what you must do to be saved. How do you know you're right?
I don't know. I don't know.
Cool.
Okay.
Then how on earth can you say it makes sense to you if you don't know you're right?
Because I grew up without a father, and I found a father in Christianity. I found love. I've always been looking for that. I try to find love in everybody.
I have questions.
And I find that in God as I perceive it.
I have questions. Kyle, do you have children?
Yeah. I do not.
Okay. You said you found love in Christianity. Exactly what kind of love that you know of outside of Christianity, exactly what kind of love includes like the threat of hell and like the need for someone to be repentant of sins and things like that, includes the demand for worship and praise? What kind of love do you know of in your life that involves that?
I believe that if you desire and seek a relationship, I feel like you no longer think of the bad, but you only see the good. I hope that answers.
That shouldn't be true. That shouldn't be true. I love my wife implicitly. I love my wife more than I love anything in the whole world. If she started like murdering babies, I probably wouldn't be into her anymore. You know what I mean? If she's going around setting dogs on fire, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? I love her to pieces, but I wouldn't love her if she acted that way. And so for this, you don't have to look past all the bad things. God's offering a lot of bad things, and God's claiming to be perfect while he's offering all these bad things. So like, why does that count as love?
If your whole definition of perfect is to look past the bad things, then I'm perfect.
Good point. I now, does having a wrath or an anger make you less perfect?
I don't know. I don't have
I-
any clue what perfection is. You're the one here advocating for a perfect being that is so horribly broken you have to ignore the bad things.
I was
do
heard
believe
that
that.
I was always taught in the Christian tradition that wrath is a sin, which means that God is sinful because he's so wrathful. He's also very prideful. At one point, he says, "My name is jealousy." So, like,
Yeah.
jealousy and pride and wrath are all sins, and God commits them so much that they are like the definition of his character.
Now we can agree that the Bible was written by fallible men, right?
Oh, yeah, but that's
Sure.
not the point. The point is, this is the character that you're saying is real.
When you say you found love, apart
Yes,
from
sir.
love from other people, have you found any love other than from other people? Because I've never found love from anything other than other people and other animals.
I didn't find love. I found the reflection of love that I can now give to others, if that makes any sense.
It makes me want to puke, actually.
Yeah.
Because
it
you
sounds
talked
like you're
about
okay,
you
sorry.
found love, but now when we finally try to get down to brass tacks, you're like, well, I found the reflection of love. It's absolute
real,
garbage
yeah.
sophistry. And this is all from you've decided on a particular version of Christianity. You have no way
Right.
of knowing by your own admission if you're correct or not, and yet somehow you seem to have picked one. You say that it makes sense to you, but it doesn't make sense enough for you to explain it. You say that it's about love, but it's not love from anything other than other people. It's just a reflection of love. Every time we get you to the point where you're going to have to defend something substantive, it vanishes in a puff of smoke and sophistry and metaphor. Just like your God.
I have a different line
your
of
God
questioning if this
vanishes in a
doesn't go there.
puff of sophistry and metaphor.
Well, yeah,
Let me try asking you a thing.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you were waiting to speak.
you're okay. I was trying to think of how to word it.
Yeah, if you have something to respond to that, I'm okay with it. But I have one other, like, just kind of like a short line of questioning to see if I can kind of get to the heart of the issue. And if not, then I just can't.
By the way,
Yeah,
we're
please.
still going to let you ask me the question about my mom. We just want to get through this stuff.
Oh yeah, I
Oh,
forgot about that. I'm glad you remember. Yeah. Kyle, do you believe in a hell? Do you think that there is such a thing as hell?
I believe that hell is not like it pictures in the Bible, but I do believe that it is like Cliff Kennedy says, it's separation from God.
Okay, sure enough. And I guess the question is there suffering there, or is it just that you're not around God anymore and you shouldn't want that?
I would say that's one of the mysteries that nobody knows.
Okay. Is heaven preferable, and if so, why?
Preferable on how you get in?
No, preferable in like being there.
Man, I'd like to think so.
Okay, why? Why would it be better to go to heaven than hell?
Because if God is everything that the Bible says he is, why would you not want that? If there is,
Because he's a
if there
fucking
is,
monster in the Bible that
Yeah.
flooded the entire world except for 8 people.
Yeah,
Because he's
God,
a
if
monster
he is
that
real,
killed the firstborn in Egypt. Because he's a fucking monster at every turn.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Why would I not want to be a part of that? You
that's
worship a
precisely
monster.
what I wanted to get. Yeah, that this God is an asshole, and if he is real and he is what the Bible says, I wouldn't want anything to do with him. So wouldn't I want to go to hell then?
well, if you wanna look at it like that, or if you just man, that's a good question. I'm not gonna act like I know it all. That's a good question.
So what about you? I mean, I think we talked about the Bible last time you called in. I'm pretty sure I brought up, the plagues in Egypt. I think I went on a whole rant about that with you, if I remember right.
I went and read that.
Yeah.
But didn't
Yes.
they eventually in the story didn't he eventually deliver them out of slavery?
Yes,
In
and
that
then he put
story?
them back into slavery several times. So
And then he made
killed every
rules.
first.
And he made
Yes, so
rules to allow people to enslave the heathen that surround them forever.
Now,
Yeah,
couldn't
so
it be
God,
that,
he
couldn't it
did
be
he
that was
did free the Israelites from slavery.
on God?
Excuse me, I just want to be sure. I just want to be clear about it. God did free the Israelites from slavery after he tortured the hell out of the Egyptians and killed a bunch of babies and violated the Pharaoh's free will. And then he delivered the Jews back into slavery several times throughout the book of Judges. And also, he gave explicit instructions on how to keep slaves for other people, like how to keep more slaves, or how to make the Israelites also become slave owners. So the problem for God was never slavery. He never said slavery is bad. He actually explained how to do slavery the way that he likes. The problem was his special people were slaves. Yes. He doesn't want them being slaves, but he's cool with anybody else being taken and kept as a slave and beaten as a slave. So the God of the Bible in that whole story endorses slavery, explains how to do slavery, and also get some people out of slavery in the stupidest and most hideous way possible. Matt, you had something to say.
Let's pause, because it's 2-on-1 against Kyle, and there's a lot here and a lot to think about. And Kyle's been generally honest, even if he's worshiping a monster and claiming to things that he can't back up. But Kyle, you wanted to ask me a specific question, and I said you could, so I want to make sure we do that before we move on.
Okay. You had said that your mom had mentioned that she had seen was it a demonic, a demon or an angel or
many
something?
Times. Many
okay,
times.
And you said that you didn't necessarily want to say that she was lying.
I'm happy to believe that my mom experienced something. I'm just not happy that her description and understanding of what she experienced is correct.
Okay. So you're just skeptical on it. I got you.
I'm skeptical on everything, but
right.
I also know my mom, and I find it absolutely beyond stupid, preposterous that can you understand a model where there's a God who creates his own enemy, knowing everything that's going to happen, and then lets his enemy fuck with his believers, fuck with his devout, right down to Job, and let little demons appear to torment my mom while doing absolutely nothing about it? What kind of God permits that? And it's absurd. What it is, most probably, is just human delusion. There is no reason to think there's anything more to any religious supernatural claim than individual human failings of reason, emotion, and delusion. That's it.
Now, is that one of the main reasons you fell away from religion?
No. I was studying, I thought God was punishing me for not becoming a preacher. And so I set out and spent 1.5 years in sincere and devout study and prayer to do what I thought God wanted me to do. And I found that not only did my former beliefs not have good reasons, but that apparently nobody else's did either. That's how I found my way out. There was no problem with me in Christianity. My only goal was, I'm going to be the best representative of Christ I can be. Which is probably one of the reasons I get really irritated at these garbage thinking buffoons who call in, because they're like, oh, they're all smug and let me dismiss this atheist. Motherfucker, I was a better Christian than you then. I'm probably a better Christian than you now, and I definitely know more about it than you do. So not you, Kyle. I'm not, this is not directed at you. This is my ire at all these people who call in. Oh, I've got the truth. I've got the truth. I've got the truth. No, you don't. You're a dipshit. You just like I was. Because you were lied to, you were manipulated, you were indoctrinated, and you were surrounded by a whole bunch of other people who were lied to, manipulated, and indoctrinated. And when you are surrounded by all of those people, that says a reinforcement of all those delusions. So of course it feels real, and of course you feel love. And of course when you're standing there in church and you're singing praise hymns, you get goosebumps, because that's what fucking music does. Not what God does, that's what music does.
I like that perspective.
Yeah. Okay. Does that answer your question for Matt? Because I have one more thing for you, Kyle, and then we'll probably start moving on. I just want to make sure you were done with your questions for Matt on that, because I didn't want you to feel like you were stifled on that.
No, yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. So a minute ago, Matt wanted to make sure you got that question in, and I really appreciate that. I now want to also ask, like, just to follow up to what I was talking about. We talked about the Pharaoh, and we talked about the slavery and all those things. Like, you know what we're talking about, right? I don't know if you've read in Exodus 20 something, 21, I believe, where God gives explicit instructions on how to beat your slaves and how long you can keep them as property and pass them on to your children. Have you read that? Are you familiar with that?
I have heard it. Yes.
Yeah, and he gives different
I've
instructions. A lot of apologists. Sorry.
a lot of the Christians I have around me, if I ask questions, they immediately get pissed off. Oh, you're questioning your faith. Oh, your faith ain't strong enough.
Yeah,
You ain't a true believer. All this other nonsense that I
that's
would rather come to an atheist that is at least a free
yeah.
thinker.
That's what I like to call an everlasting thought stopper. You are questioning your faith, and God doesn't like that. So stop thinking so hard.
Yeah.
Don't use the brain that God gave you.
Right.
Here the thing is, it's God gives there's specific instructions in Exodus for Hebrew slaves and for non-Hebrew slaves. If they're a Hebrew slave, then you set them free after 7 years, and it's mainly just to pay off a debt. Except there's a special exception to that rule. If they come in single, then you can give them a wife and children, and their wife and children stay your slaves forever, and they can go free unless they want to keep their wife and kids, in which case they go through this weird little ritual, and then they're your slave forever, and everybody else is slave forever and gets passed down like property to your children, and there's rules about how to beat them properly and all this shit. We can agree, I hope. Like, I'm going to ask you this, and I want you to answer sincerely. Can we agree that that's fucking evil, Kyle?
That is fucked. That is fucked up. And I
Yeah.
am so glad that we do not live in biblical times like that, to where I would curse at my mom and she could fucking stone me. That would be brutal.
Yes, exactly. And so, like, these are the rules of the God of the Bible: is stoning children, keeping slaves, stoning women to death. If you rape a virgin, you can pay her dad $40 and then she's your property, and like all this shit. Like, there's a bunch of really fucked up stuff in the Bible in terms of rules that God himself passed down and Jesus never corrected. In the New Testament, Jesus says, I come not to change the law, but to fulfill it. And I am not, no dot or tittle of the law shall change until all things have come to pass. And so, like, the new covenant doesn't. Yes, I've read it, dude. And also the 10 Commandments are in the Old Testament, all 3 versions of them. There's 3 different times God gives the 10 Commandments, and they're different every time, and they're all in the Old Testament. So unless that gets thrown out, the Old Testament's still law. All I'm saying is, like, if we agree that that's all fucked up, and we agree that this God has some pretty shitty ideas, I want to return to what you were saying a minute ago about heaven and stuff. Why would you worship something like that? Why would you want to spend eternity with something like that? If your God is real, he's not good. So why do you like him?
Man, because it's just I really don't have a good answer back for that on the spot.
That's okay. It's something to think about. And I'll
it's
tell you,
a good thing to think about, because we've already
we've
been going at this for like 30 minutes already, Kyle, and I got some other callers I need to get to as well. So there's a lot to think about.
Yeah, so I hope you do think about it. And if you bring it up to your Christian friends and they try to argue the Bible with you, just remind them that, like, yeah, dude, if they try to argue the Bible with you, here's another fun thing to think about. Over 24,000 people starve to death every single day, including over 10,000 children. 10,000 babies, children starve to death every single day in this world. God's in charge, and he's okay with that. That's part of the plan. And most of those people aren't Christian, so they're going to hell. They were born, they starve to death, and they go to hell. And that's moral? That's the system that you're worshiping? So I hope you do think about these things, Kyle, and I hope you call us back sometime, especially if I'm on, because I'd love to talk to you. I think you're really honest about what you believe, and I'd love to help just, like, pick at it some more. And maybe we'll never agree, but I think we're having a really good conversation. I think the people listening are benefiting from our conversation as well.
I appreciate your guys' time. I appreciate what you guys do.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you so much, Kyle. That's very kind of you.
See you guys. Hey,
take care.
Have a good night.
What a nice dude. Kyle's
Yeah,
awesome.
I mean,
that was my one
maybe don't
phone
take a
call that I wore the
bong
wig
rip
for.
right. What'd you say?
I said that was my one phone call that I wore the wig for, and now look at my fucking hair.
Yeah. No, I don't mind talking to Kyle. Just maybe don't take a bong rip right before you call in.
Did he say that he did that?
Kind of stay on target. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
But
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna take.
You know what?
Go,
I've had worse callers that were sober.
Fair. I'm gonna take an atheist caller that's been on hold for a while because I have a question that I don't know what they mean by. So Greg in Florida, pronouns are him, has a question about universalism, and I don't know necessarily what you mean by universalism, Greg, because there's a variety of different things people could mean.
Yeah. Hey, Matt and Forrest, thanks for taking my call. I think you kind of jumped into a lot of it in that last call. I know with Forrest in the past, I've heard you say that you wouldn't worship a God that was for the things that happened in the Old Testament, things like that. I didn't know if Christian universalism or just overall universalism was true, where there was no hell, everyone went to heaven, if that would change your opinion on that at all. I think from what you just said, probably the biggest problem with that would be like the slavery and the suffering prolonged here on earth from that. But I was just curious what your feedback would be if there was no hell, and if, we all die at some point. So if, even premature deaths weren't punished with eternal conscious torment, like how that would impact your thoughts on that.
Doesn't change a damn thing about how this world is run today. So the fact that we still live in a world with this much insanity and this much pain and suffering that is no one's fault, still not worthy of a God worth worshiping, in my opinion. Go on, Matt.
When you say there's no hell, are you talking annihilation theory, so that those of us who are unbelievers just get annihilated? Or are you doing universalism as in like everybody goes to the good place?
So where I would say I'm at currently is I would probably describe myself as an agnostic atheist, but hopeful universalist. If heaven is what,
I don't know what that means.
I came from a Christian
background. That's not even in the ballpark of an answer to my question. By universalist,
Sorry,
are
Matt.
you advocating for annihilation, so the people who aren't part of the religion don't go to hell, but they just cease to exist? Or are you advocating for universalism in the sense that everybody goes to the good place? I thought I was explicit.
Yeah, you were. I apologize. So I would say that I hope that everyone goes to the good place. I would say that would be the first thing. Second thing would be annihilation. I see that as more reasonable.
What makes it the good place? Because the place that I hear descriptions of, the description of heaven in the Bible is not a place that interests me.
Sure. I don't know. In that case, that's a good question. If you don't want to be there, I'm not sure what, that God would force you to be there. And I'm not sure where exactly I fall on all of that right now. That, again, I just know I don't believe in eternal conscious torment, which is what I grew up believing. And both annihilation or universal seems to make more sense to me at this point. And I feel relatively okay with either of those outcomes, if that makes sense.
Except that both of those outcomes mean that at least somebody is going to some version of a good place. Do we have any way of knowing what that good place is like?
I mean, there's a lot of different religious descriptions of it. I grew up with the Christian understanding of it, and I would say that there's not really any factual basis for it, which is why I would describe myself more on the agnostic atheist side at this point.
I would be interested to know why that does interest you then. Because like Matt just said, like it doesn't interest him, and you're still here espousing like this is a preferable thing. If you don't know anything about it and you're like, oh, I only know this tradition and I don't know if it, why does it interest you to go to such a place?
I don't think it matters too much to me if I go there or if I don't. Like a lot of my thoughts on that part of it come more from what I don't believe. I still interact with a lot of believers and a lot of Christians and have a lot of issues with a lot of their beliefs. And so, I just find that I disagree with a lot of them. I haven't really landed on where I believe on some of that.
Also, someone in chat just asked a really good question. You said you grew up with the Christian understanding, so that's kind of there's not just one Christian understanding. There's thousands of Christian understandings. So, like, what are you even talking about there, and why is that one good?
That's true. I mean, my understanding of it, would be no pain, no suffering in the presence of God who loves you, unconditional love, all of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So
The
boring.
problem is that's pure fantasy. And so we're sitting here speculating about shit that nobody can demonstrate, that we have no good reason is true. And yet, if we look at what we actually know scientifically, the very notion that there is some sort of soul that could survive my death and is in any way me is wholly unscientific and the most obviously false thing that any religion has ever offered. Everything about my personality, my likes, my preference, they are all functions of my brain, identifiable functions of my brain that are subject to manipulation physically. Like you can go in and make physical modifications to my brain, and that changes who I am, what I remember, who I love, which kind of ice cream I like. And so if all of that is manipulated physically, where is there any room at all in our understanding of who we are? Where is there any room for anything like a soul that could survive a death?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know all the biology and physics behind that.
And this is why I don't get into arguments about whether Superman or Batman or Superman or Black Adam is tougher, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, that was I had two questions to go over. That was kind of more of a side question because I was happy that Forrest was on tonight because I know I've heard you talk about your opinion on, if God did prove that he existed, you wouldn't worship him anyway. So that was kind of a quick question of would that change your opinion on it?
Worship concept, yeah. I say maybe, but I probably wouldn't because worship as a concept is bizarre to me. No being deserving of anything like worship could ever expect or demand it.
Yeah.
I get that. That makes sense. Okay. My other question that I hear comes up a lot is on absolute morality. I feel like when I was more on the theistic side, that was kind of one of the arguments that made the most sense to me. And I feel like you guys do a really good job of building your morality out between, if I got it correct, I think I've heard both of you say reduce human suffering and increase human flourishing, if I'm not mistaken. Is that pretty accurate, quick summary? Okay. My only question, I feel like every time I hear you discuss it with somebody, the question I always have still outstanding is how can we apply that to somebody else? Like, I feel like if you tell me those are your morals, like we could take your actions and then compare them and see if your actions are good or bad or right or wrong or however you want to describe that. But if we were looking at a third person who said my morality is to provide for and protect my family above all others, I don't care about anybody else, could we judge their actions and apply, punishment, judgment, whatever? And would it basically just be like social contract type stuff where like that's what society's agreed on, or is there some other thing that you look towards for that?
As far as punishment and whatnot is concerned, it depends on if they hurt anybody else. But if they're just protecting their own family and nobody else, then they're missing the point of living in a society, which is that we all our unity is our strength. It's what benefits all of us. So if you're protecting your own family, if you're living here in everyday modern America and you only care about your own family, okay. What about the family of the people who work at the water plant that are giving you clean drinking water? What about the families of the people who work at the electric plant that are giving you electricity? What about the families of the people who built your house? What about the families of the people who are driving the trucks to bring you food and get food at the grocery store? Like this, all of these things are also people with families. And if they all only cared about their own family and nobody else, I guarantee you wouldn't be living in a place that you'd want your family to be. So it is because people care about more than just their family that you have a successful society with which to try to plant your family and be a selfish asshole. That would be my criticism of them. But that's neither here nor there. That's I don't think they're doing anything as a moral failing. I just think they're being a dick.
Okay, that describes it better. So like could we judge their actions then on right or wrong or good or bad or
yes.
Yes,
I can judge,
that doesn't matter.
As I established earlier,
like it, yes.
as I established earlier, my judgment is all that matters, and I can only judge based on my own understanding. And Forrest can only judge on his understanding, and Greg can only judge on his understanding. And so, if Forrest and Greg and I come to a different judgment about assessing someone's actions, then we can have a conversation about why we judged that differently, and we can work together to convince each other that one of us is right, or there's something in between two of us, or there's a fourth option that none of us got right. We've overlooked this. That is the process. You have no choice but to judge based on what your current understanding is. And when you, I think one of the best things that you can do as a person is realize, hey, I'm judging this person, and I'm going to, because I think I'm right. And I'm making this judgment. And if it turns out that other people aren't judging it the same way, you have to dig in and say, okay, what's my reason? This is one of the things where, like, we were talking to people earlier, and you know, when the caller was saying, oh, it just makes sense to me. Okay, cool. Then tell me what the reason is. Why does that make sense? If Forrest asked me, you know, what's your position on gun control and why, I might have difficulty because I may not have sussed it all out, but I'm not calling into a show to talk about gun control. But I can absolutely say, you know what? I prefer Australia's laws to the United States laws. I'm not necessarily to the point where I think that I'm okay with a ban, but you know, at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck really if we ban every fucking gun on the planet, because I don't need them or want them. And you know, but you know, from the legal standpoint, a Second Amendment in the United States and all this other stuff, cool. But if we say, hey, is Richard Dawkins a good person? Now, all three of us could answer that completely differently, because generally, I think Richard's a good person, but I think Richard's wrong about quite a few things.
Sure.
And I don't ever sum up the entirety of someone's character. It's not like, you know, oh, you're a good person and somebody else is a bad person. No, we're all persons, and we do good and bad things. I mean, the closest I can come to summing up, Forrest, who I ironically, sarcastically, you know, called dumb earlier and was saying that I had evidence for it. Forrest is fucking brilliant, but Forrest is probably stupid about something somewhere. I don't know. I haven't found what it is, but if I ever find the thing that Forrest is really stupid about, I'm going to let you know.
It's most things.
But yeah, you don't have any choice. You don't have any choice but to judge that way. And the question then isn't so much of, you know, should we do that, whatever else. It is judge with humility. Do it with the recognition that you are probably wrong about this or something else. And that if somebody comes to you and says, I think you're wrong, that your reaction is going to be, oh, God damn, that hurts. Oh my gosh. Okay, explain to me why you think I'm wrong. And you can have that discussion. And maybe they are correct that I'm wrong, or maybe they're not correct that I'm wrong, or maybe they're correct and they can't convince me. Who knows?
Yeah. I like the rational conversation, discuss things amongst each other. You know, you can see who's right, who's wrong. You know, maybe you agree to disagree, that type of stuff. The issue for me comes in more where we implement, you know, societal punishments, jail, you know, whatever. But that may get out of the morality realm and more into the political realm, which is probably a different discussion for a different time. But yeah, that's good stuff. Go ahead.
I yawned, and it wasn't because I was bored. It's because I've had an incredibly long weekend. I didn't want to be rude, but yeah, my body yawns when it yawns. Why does that happen for us?
Absolutely.
What the fuck is a yawn, and why do we do it?
I think I don't know if we actually know for sure what yawning's all about. We certainly don't know why it's so contagious. I don't know if it's like a social signal, because like even non-social animals do it. If I had to hazard, I'm going to double check, because I know hiccuping is a leftover from when we were fishes and we were using it as like a gulping technique. But I'm pretty sure this is something similar. So like it may aid in thermoregulation. It may by increasing blood flow to the head. I always thought it had something to do with blood pressure, but I could be wrong about that. Yeah, just it's a super common reflex that even like thinking about it or saying the word yawn can cause someone to yawn. Yeah, we just don't know. Yeah, see, we just don't know so much about it. It's one of those big mysteries. Which there's some ideas. Like I said at the beginning, I'm looking at this now, and somebody's saying it might be a social function, like signal something. It might be a psychological thing to regulate
I'm
body.
hearing some
It might
weird
be a
audio.
Yeah, it's probably just feedback. But like, yeah, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of hypotheses around yawning, but we have no idea for sure. And I had to double check to make sure I said that right before I said it.
But Greg, did we cover enough there?
Yeah, we covered enough. I appreciate you guys' time. We should talk politics sometime, but I'll call back another time for that. And good luck on your surgery there. Hope you have a quick recovery, Matt.
Thanks so much. I do too, because I have videos to produce and I'm going to have difficulty speaking. But it's so wild. I'm getting half my mouth ripped out, and then I have to come back and record the videos for August because I didn't get to do them the other day when I wanted to. But, all right, we have 2 callers left. Are you ready for 21?
Yeah. Yes, and also the person I saw several people in chat say that they missed the wig and that they liked the wig. Right now, our YouTube thing on Roll for Initiative, the YouTube fundraiser alone is at $7,637. If that gets up to $8,000 during this call, I'll wear the wig for the rest of the show for the last call. And if it doesn't, that's okay too. Yeah.
So Steve's calling from Nebraska. Pronouns are he, him. Something about signal of the terrestrial genetic code. I'm going to have to, I'm tapping out before the call starts, probably, Steve. You're on with Forrest.
Yeah. Hi, Matt. Hi, Forrest. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Now I saw on the call screen here, it says the WOW signal. You're talking about like the thing from the Big Ear telescope?
No, what I'm referring to is a claim made by a couple of scientists, namely Vladimir Sherbak and Maxim Makakov, claiming they had unlocked a message embedded in our genetic code describing the formulation of an Egyptian triangle based on 8 of the canonical amino acids being sufficiently defined by the composition of their codon's first and second base nucleotides.
Okay.
And how they unlocked the signal is they took one of the aforementioned amino acids, proline, core component, uniquely has 73 nucleons, in contrast to the others having 74. And they transferred a hydrogen atom from proline's side chain to its core component. And then so they standardized the atomic mass at 74 nucleons for each of the aforementioned 8 canonical amino acids core structure. So then consequently, the nucleon sum of these amino acid side chain is 333, which is 37 times 3 squared. The sum of the nucleon's block chain or core structure is 592, which is 37 times 4 squared. And the sum of their
Icarus.
Yes, it was. It was about 10 years ago. That's it. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And the scope of SETI and used to store non-biological information. The storage capacity, stronger noise management genetic code, chromatic codons and amino acids flexibility allows recorded code artificially once fixed. Code must be unchanged over cosmological timescales. Okay, so then
I know
we're going to take
out
this and plug it into
But you're saying all these numbers as if there's some relevance or pattern.
Well, there is, because when you
you
take the nucleon sum total
from the periodic cell,
it's equal to 925. That's nucleon sum total would be basically the atomic mass is 925, which is 37 times 5 squared. So when you factor out 37, it results in 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared.
Okay,
which is
Steve,
representative of an Egyptian triangle.
Stop. I'm asking you, I don't need you to repeat the fucking numbers. Repeating fucking numbers at me will never fucking help. What is the point of this pattern that you're seeing? I'm not getting the point. It
Well,
sounds like
point,
it sounds like you're an AI rattling off numbers, or Rain Man sensing a pattern that may not be there.
well, the point of this is this that when you take the standardized core structure of proline at 74, it has no known natural occurring function, albeit may serve as a decoder initializing with 37 being a common divisor.
I'm done. I'm tapping out again.
Mathematical pattern conveying the message in an adjacent triangle.
Go ahead, Steve.
And the genetic code.
Code is in testing. Now, here we show the terrestrial code displays thorough precision type orient. It's matching the criteria.
Yeah, man, I'm sorry you're mad at me. You want me to hang up? I'm sorry you seem kind of upset.
No, he's just bored. And like the thing is, like what you're doing here is you're rattling off all of this information, which frankly for this call is completely pointless, because like we could just address what you're actually saying. I'm sitting here looking at the abstract of this article and then also seeing where it was published and who's cited it and what it actually means, because like I'm not seeing anything in here saying therefore God. I'm not seeing anything in here of any particular consequence. I'm seeing in here like we found this sequence that just happens to be a pretty neat little sequence. And like, that's it. And we found a lot of those. And maybe there's something I'm missing. I'm kind of just skating through this article, which is dense scientific language, while trying to listen to you rattle off 1,000 numbers that don't mean anything to me. And so like, oh, you checked out twice.
Without saying any numbers at all, what pattern are you seeing and what conclusion are you reaching from it? Are you suggesting that there's some math in the genetic code that signals a God or a designer or an intellect, or are you just spouting numbers? Because that's all I've heard is spouting numbers. So what is the fucking point?
The scientists conclude that the genetic code was invented by extraterrestrial intelligence. That there's some message and information.
What fucking scientist concluded that the genetic code was invented by extraterrestrials? Because that dude's
Maxim Makokov and Vladimir Sherbak, as I had mentioned at the beginning.
I just want to hold on just a second. Here we go. I'm just scrolling through the paper and looking for the word extraterrestrial, and yeah, it looks like it's in there. And like here's searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. A lot of their citations here. Here's the one point where it says here it is talking about the WOW signal from the big ear decimal system, blah 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 blah. Decimal system shares this, blah 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 blah. After all, some of the messages from Earth sent from Earth included the decimal system, blah blah blah. It's talking about fucking decimals. Although they were not supposed to be received necessarily by 10-digit extraterrestrials. What the fuck are you talking about? Extraterrestrial decimal system and the code appears to be invented outside the solar system already several billion years ago. Okay, so these guys are saying some shit. And so like here's the long and short of it, my dude, is like I haven't read this paper. I'm skimming through this paper while you're saying things. Like you have here a paper where some people, I'm just going to take your word for it, that what they're saying is that there's a sequence in the DNA that sounds an awful lot like some stuff that sounds like some alien said some things. And it was published in a journal. It's got, like, I'm looking here at it's been cited 3 times by Search for Cosmic Ancestry and shit like this. So, like, it's more alien people looking at this thing. The point of the matter is, this is the first that I'm hearing of any of this. And I'm not the greatest biologist in the whole goddamn world. But like, if this were in any way serious or taken any kind of seriously over the past 10 years, 11 years since this has been published, like, surely it would have made some serious waves, right? You have one scientific paper that says one thing that's pretty outlandish based on what you're saying. I don't think that's actually what it says, but who knows? You can find some papers that say some outlandish shit about just about anything. The point is, does it have the actual like evidence to back it up? And does it have scientific consensus behind it? And it doesn't sound like this does. All you're saying is there's 2 scientists who believe some crazy shit. Well, I can cite to you plenty of biologists who don't believe in evolution. That doesn't mean that they're right. I can cite to you plenty of biologists who believe that sex is a strict binary. it doesn't mean that they're right. I can get like several different things that are like demonstrably wrong that people still believe in. There are plenty of medical doctors out there that believe in chiropractics and naturopathy and essential oils and shit. Doesn't mean that they're right. The point is like what the consensus shows, what the preponderance of the evidence shows. And you have here one paper written by two dudes who say, here's some stuff that looks kind of like a code, and that means aliens. I don't understand why you're taking it seriously.
How do you falsify the claim that the pattern they think they see is actually a pattern and the result of alien engineering? How do you falsify that?
Well, that's your speculation as far as who put that pattern in the genetic code, of course. That's
Steve,
not something that's falsifiable.
Steve, wasn't that the whole point? Apart from rattling off numbers, wasn't the whole point to say that that there was something about this pattern that made them conclude it was extraterrestrial in origin?
That's the best explanation, but that doesn't mean it's right.
That's not science. Science isn't abduction, and science requires falsifiability. Saying, hey, we think we see something and we can't prove we're right, but we suspect that it's alien. Who gives a fuck?
How often does a pattern, a precise pattern of an Egyptian triangle appear in nature that occurs naturally?
Who gives a fuck?
Who gives a fuck? Pattern.
Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck?
Well, you don't, obviously.
You don't either, because if you gave a shit about the actual fucking truth, instead of rattling off numbers, you're hanging up now, you little coward, run away. I asked you how to falsify,
what he said,
and you tried to do some. It's abduction. It's the best explanation.
I've got like 3 articles about this here that I was trying to like actually ask him about, and like this, it's just not like it's a guy. I'm not saying that he's absolutely wholly wrong, but he's an astrophysics researcher. This is one of the guys. There's 2 guys in the paper. I pulled up one of them. He's an astrophysics researcher who's promoting panspermia. And he said this is an intelligent-like signal, is what he's saying. The code that he's found in our DNA, everything on Earth has it. And he says that it equates to 37 in some way. I don't know. I'm scanning through this New Scientist article here. And he says that it kind of indicates that maybe panspermia is a thing. Like, I don't think that the caller fundamentally understands how science works or how any of this will work. That's just not, you can't just say a scientist said a thing, therefore it's true. And it's certainly not something as big as panspermia. I don't know, man. She's weird. She's a weird claim. She's a weird take.
Sorry, I was dealing with chat. It's so frustrating to me because let's say this reminds me completely of the Bible code stuff of we found what we think is equidistant letter sequences and we do it in these and we can find these messages and we find it. And it's like, clearly that message was put there by a God. No, we can do the same thing in Moby Dick. Equidistant letter sequences are going to produce stuff like this. And so here's somebody who's written a paper. Steve, by the way, Steve, you can call and talk to whoever you want, but don't ever call me again. Yeah, I know you won't because you ran away and you were mad that I was troubled by you anyway. The reason I was troubled by you is because you came in and rattled off a bunch of numbers, cited a paper, and then wanted us to treat it as if it was, oh, they're saying they suspect that it may be an alien signal. Why? Why do they suspect it may be an alien signal? What is it about the actual calculations that suggest it's not just what happens with the numbers in anything like this? And my question still stands, which you fucking ran away from. How do you falsify it? You don't have a scientific model if you don't have a falsifiable hypothesis. If there's no way to show you were wrong, then every bit of your speculation is useless. And it's a waste of my time and a waste of my viewers' time. Now, there's an actual paper there, and Forrest rattled through it and can look into it more.
I'm not gonna.
I find it preposterous that any serious thinker could say, I found a pattern in the genetic code that is most likely extraterrestrial. How would you know? What does an extraterrestrial pattern look like? How do you know what could occur? It is the same thing as the creationists who were saying the odds of this happening are 1 in blah, 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 and therefore God. It's just so unlikely. We couldn't do it without a God. That's the same error. And so that's why you ran away, Steve, because when I asked about falsifiability, you knew the jig was up. Oh, well, it's just what their best explanation is. Why should anybody care about a couple of guys saying, hey, we found some numbers. We think it might be extraterrestrial. Cool. I think it might be fairies. How is your extraterrestrial hypothesis better than my fairies hypothesis? So now we have two competing hypotheses, neither of which can be demonstrated, neither of which are falsifiable. And that's why I was saying, who gives a fuck? I don't care at all about people's speculations about finding patterns. We do that all the time. Not every, a good chunk of the religions out there are pattern recognition failures at the core. But we have one final call to get to if you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm going to post the paper in chat because people were asking for it.
Cool. Somebody in chat gives it fun. There's the answer to my question that I asked 20 times.
Yeah, they should check it out.
20 times. I think it was about.
Let's go.
Anyway, Shervin in Virginia, pronouns are he, him. If you're on your phone on the web app, you might have to tap and wake up your phone so that we can actually hear you. But you are live.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Hi, Matt. Hi, Forrest.
How you doing?
I'm a big fan of you guys. I have recently turned 18, and I've been getting into politics and stuff.
Cool.
And I've been trying to kind of be an informed voter about how I'm voting and not jump into an echo chamber of the left or the right. How do you guys recommend I go about researching politics?
I'm a new fan of ground news.
Yeah,
I haven't been using it long and can't say a lot about it, but I'm a fan of it.
I'm a big fan of NPR. And even though there are times where I really get pissed off at them, I think they're the most balanced option available. They're most factual based, and the only thing I have issues with NPR is when they like fail to report on things, or they will go sometime, like for example with the genocide in Gaza, they've been a little bit cautious with their language where I think they ought not to be, but that's just me. But like, yeah, there's a few things that you can do. Number one is just asking good questions and looking for better sources. So like, be aware of like what kind of language somebody's using. If somebody is saying that they're the best at such a thing, if they say they're the best choice, or they're the most smart, or the greatest whatever, be aware that is marketing language, and you need to check it. Be sure to like actually check if somebody says this is the way that something has to be run to make something. Well, why? Ask a question and double check on it. If somebody says we have to increase prices on this thing, or decrease prices on that thing, or regulate this thing, or deregulate that thing, check to see what happens. Look up, like, see if you can find an example of the opposite thing happening and it going well or poorly or whatever else. Just see if the opposite of what they're saying has ever been true. If somebody makes the big one for me, if somebody calls something socialism or communism, make sure you know what those words mean before you believe what they're saying. Be aware of fear baiting and fear mongering language. Be aware of it when people are just saying, trying to prop up a different person as an excuse or as a scapegoat for whatever problems they're trying to solve. Read this tiny little book right here called On Tyranny by Timothy Snyder. It's a tiny little book. You can fit it in your pocket and you can read it in like an hour and read it a few times because it's pretty cool. I would recommend just getting used to being familiar with the common political pitfalls that lots of people, especially young people, fall into. That's what I would recommend.
I see. Thank you so much. Matt, I actually have a subscription to Ground News, so I'm happy that you talked about that.
I just barely got started. I've been getting notifications from it, but I've been so busy it's been like a week and a half, I think. And so I check them. But I don't think I've actually, apart from the notifications, I don't think I've dug in on it too much. But every time I go over and look at the app or the website, I'm encouraged that if I'm not better informed by going there, it sure as hell feels like I'm better informed because I'm seeing news items that I might not have seen from my other news sources. Because we don't have cable anymore. I don't tend to watch any network. I'll go on, I have YouTube and I go on whatever's live. And so, CNN, NPR, AP, whoever's putting stuff out, I bounce around and I'll watch Fox News stuff and clips and things. But honestly, a good chunk of my news has consistently come from comedians and late night, like Seth Meyers and stuff like that. And so, I love those guys, but I'm also getting more out of Ground News now than I was out of just other news sources.
Yeah, you can look up a media bias chart, media bias reporting chart, and you can easily see like where people fall if they're like Fox News, where it is non-factual, very extremist language, whatever, or if it's something closer to like Associated Press, where it's like this is just plain facts on the ground, not a lot of commentary involved, just like this is what happened and this is what we know. As opposed to MSNBC, which is like it's pretty factual on some stuff, but it's a lot of interpretation of those facts as well. So like you've got different levels. Like, is it more commentary than just straightforward fact speaking? Is it made up bullshit? Where on the level from NPR to OAN are we talking? You know what I mean? So like. That's I would look up those and try to like just be really careful about where you get your information from. And if you find that you're agreeing with somebody a lot over and over and over and over, okay, maybe they might be somebody that's for you, but be aware of that and be aware that you might be then subject to some bias if you're listening to what this person is saying. You might take them a little more seriously than somebody else who deserves for you to take them seriously. And so like don't let you be swayed because you trap yourself in an echo chamber. I if I listen to something from, I'm trying to think about a political commentator that I like, and I don't have a lot of them. It's very likely. I don't know how to finish that sentence. I was trying to find a political commentator that I would just be like, this person really, I tend to agree with them, and I couldn't think of one. But like, if I had one, I'd be like, okay, it's very likely that I agree with what this person is saying. So then if I hear them say that, I need to make sure that I like it, and I'm going to go check it. I'm going to go double check and make sure that that's what's actually happening and that they're not, for example, Middle East Eye is a news network that I've been paying attention to a lot recently. And I like a lot of what they have to say. They seem pretty non-biased. They seem to like and when they say things, I'm like, holy fuck. That's a very sensational headline. That's very provocative. The language they're using is really extreme. I'm going to double check their sources to make sure they're not blowing anything out of proportion and then they're not saying anything that sounds too good to be true or too bad to be true. That's going to invoke an emotional reaction out of me and get me to believe what they're saying before I critically think about it. And then I check the source. And if the source corroborates what they're saying, then I will allow an emotional reaction to the thing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's important to do.
Yeah. One question for Matt. We were talking about like scapegoats and stuff, and I've heard Trump use Biden as a scapegoat for inflation. Do you think that the inflation issue is more because of the pandemic or because of Biden's policies?
Oh, it's absolutely because, well, all right. I'm convinced that the primary reason for inflation, because it hit everywhere, or similarly along with COVID and the supply chain stuff, and the United States has actually recovered better and slightly faster than some of the other people who are hit as well. And right now, inflation I think is just under 3%, and so it's at like a 3.5-year low. So whatever. to whatever extent Biden's policies have impacted inflation, it has had a lessening effect. But I'm not saying we should credit Biden's policies for that. I think that it may be a normal kind of rebound. But I'm also an economic idiot. And when it comes to politics stuff, like I do my Wednesday night show, my politics are almost entirely not about economics. And yet, since everybody seems to be worried about it, I started digging around and pulling up actual data on where what the interest rate's doing and what inflation is doing, and how much have costs changed, because we're talking about groceries and we're talking about gas and we're talking about real people. We have a stock market that's doing amazing. We have interest rates that are steady, but they need to come down to help boost the economy, and inflation is it's lessening. I don't know how much to credit Biden or blame Biden, because I think I think the world's going to naturally kind of ebb and flow like this, and we're beating out other countries, perhaps because of good policies, or perhaps just because we're an industrialized monster that is going to find a way out from under it no matter what. I genuinely don't know. And asking me questions about economics, like, genuinely, it's one of my worst categories. Like on Jeopardy, I would get, like, if every Jeopardy thing were normal Jeopardy stuff, I'd do okay. I wouldn't do as good as Hammett did. Hammett did good on Jeopardy. But if it was all economic questions,
pretty good.
I would look like the village idiot.
Yeah. One last question, if you guys have the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Matt, how did you get
That's
into...
one. Taylor Lawrence is a reporter that I probably agree with if she says a thing, and yet I will still fact check her. There you go. This whole time I've been trying to find one. Like what she says a lot of the time. There you go. God damn.
Sorry, go ahead, Shervin.
So I was wondering, Matt, when you started deconverting from religion, what did you use really to further your knowledge about epistemology and philosophy, and like how did you come to learn about that stuff?
Yeah, I don't know how easy it's going to be to answer this, because it was a year and a half from the time that I was like, I'm going to be a preacher like God wanted, to, wow, I'm an atheist. It was about a year and a half in there. But I'm an obsessive learner, and so it didn't stop then. Like, if you go back, well, don't go back because I don't want you to give them views, but if you went back to early clips from the atheist experience, there are a lot more mistakes and there's a lot more confusion, because even at the beginning of working on the atheist experience, I was still, to this day, I'm still studying some of this stuff. But then it's a little more obvious. Like, I remember a call that Russell and I took where the guy asked us about the ontological argument, and we gave a response to a cosmological argument. And he was like, well, that was a really good response to something else, but I asked about the ontological argument. And Russell and I felt, well, I believe we both felt really stupid, because I definitely felt really stupid that I heard one thing and just replied to something else different. I started with websites, both apologetic and counter-apologetic, and ended up going to, like, I think it became either the Stanford or Plato philosophy library, going through there, and also early articles, even on Wikipedia, of like validity versus soundness. And also I went to, like, so Matt Slick's carm.org was there, and I knew that we were kind of at odds, him being a believer and me not being. And so part of my goal was, let me read what Matt has to say, because I might have made a big mistake. And that forced me to go out and say, oh, wait, what's the justification for this? What's the justification for this? And then realizing, hang on, is there a justification? Is there a grounding? And is that even necessary? I have just successfully dodged your entire question, Shervin, because I've done so much reading over so many years that I couldn't tell you what primary sources I had on epistemology. It is a mishmash of a bunch of stuff. I can tell you who I liked. I read a lot of Dennett. I read some other atheist philosophers, Colin McGinn. I'm a big fan of Susan Hawk. Probably Susan's found herentism probably influenced me more than a lot of other people's. I really should reach out to her and have a conversation one of these days, because she's just brilliant, and I would hate to miss the opportunity to have that conversation if she's up for it. If anybody knows Susan Hawk, hook us up, because I'd love to talk to her. I can't give you a better answer than that, Shervin. I'm sorry. It's been so many years of doing this that it's just a mishmash. I could go pick 20 books off my shelves in the other room, and maybe half of them were influential at some point, but I don't know when.
No, that was actually really helpful. I've looked into the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, so that is very helpful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you so much. Forrest, I love your content. You're a great teacher.
Thank you.
And Matt, you too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Shervin. I appreciate it.
Have a
I
good
will
night.
tell you that the thing that I spent the most time making sure I understood correctly was syllogisms and fallacies. Understanding the difference between validity and soundness, understanding formal fallacies that are structural, that impact the validity of the argument, and then the more informal fallacies that affect the structure. The best advice I ever got from Beth, my ex-wife, was to stop naming fallacies, because when I said like argument from ignorance, people who don't understand anything about it think I'm just calling them stupid, when that's not even in the ballpark of what I'm saying. And so knowing and understanding how and why fallacies are important, and that fallacy isn't the same as false, which a lot of people get. If you tell them their argument's fallacious, they're like, no, I know this is true.
Yeah.
Your conclusion could be true and your argument could still be fallacious. That's part of the problem. That's what we're identifying. But
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a good night. All
You
right.
too.
Hey,
Before
everybody.
we wrap up the show. Oh, fuck, you go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, hey, everybody. Before we wrap up the show, this is the Sunday show After Dark here on the line. It's sometimes I'm on the regular Sunday show at 2:00 Central. Sometimes I'm on the Sunday show After Dark at 7:00 Central. Sometimes I'm not on either of them. This week, I was really lucky and thrilled to be here with Forrest, who also did the Sunday show earlier today. And Forrest will also be doing Skeptalk tomorrow night at 6:00 with Jesse. So if you couldn't get enough of Forrest and Jesse from earlier today, if you're sick to death of me or I'm awful, whatever, you can catch both of them again tomorrow. Tuesday's Chewed Gum is going to be Alyssa Ljub. On Wednesday, I'm out for surgery, and it's going to be Paul and possibly Jimmy. We're not sure yet. Arden and Luxander are doing Transatlantic Call-In Show on Thursday, and I'll be back for the regular Sunday show at 2 p.m. Next Sunday. Forrest, what wrap-ups have you got?
I'm going to say first, I would like to know if Monkey at Typewriter is in the chat, because they usually watch all the things. And if they're not here, then I will wait, because I have a surprise. Yeah, I have a thing that I want to say. So if they're there, I hope they text while we're waiting because there's like a long delay between me saying that, them typing it, me seeing it, blah, blah, blah.
They're not.
Damn it. Okay, well, it's fine. I'll say some stuff about, because I have a thing that I think they would like. I'll show it on Skeptalk then. So tune into Skeptalk to see the surprise that I have for that person. I also want to just throw out there that in case you hadn't heard, I haven't really talked about it very much, but I wanted to let everybody know that I've got a fundraiser called Roll for Initiative, where Jesse Jurdak and I are raising money for Doctors Without Borders to help save lives all around the world. And if you want to help out with that, you freaking can. Hey, Monkey and Typewriter is there. So yeah, go over to my channel and watch Roll for Initiative. And even if you don't want to watch it, just donate, because it will really help us out a lot. Make sure to donate using our links so that we can track those donations and use them to get more sponsors, do more cool fundraising in the future. To Monkey at Typewriter specifically, but I wanted to show this to everybody. But I know that this would matter to this one person specifically. I just got back from the Galapagos Islands. I was there for 5 weeks, hosting tours around the islands, and people got to come on those tours and hang out with me and see all the animals. It was really fun. And one of the people that came on those tours was a lady named Tina. And Tina came all the way from Germany to be on these tours with me and to go and see some cool animals. And she was super nice. And she brought me a gift. And the gift is this doll. And this doll is wearing clothes, which you can remove. Oh my God, it's attached to its arms. I meant for that to be funnier than it was. Okay, so now I have a naked doll. And you notice the zipper
funny,
there?
Actually.
Right? The zipper around its body. You can dissect the boy. Look at this. You can just open it up and remove its bits. There's its stomach. It's a little anatomy teaching doll. And she got me this so that I could dissect a boy on camera. And I figured that would matter. That would matter the most to Monkey at Typewriter and anyone else who's familiar with this insane little joke we've made. So to Tina, if you're watching this, thank you so much again for giving me a little boy to dissect. I love it so much. I wanted to bring that out on this show specifically. It's just so good.
I very rarely get jealous. I'm jealous as fuck right now.
Right?
That is so fucking cool.
I fucking love my fans. The people who watch me are insane. And she brought this from the other side of the world and gave it to me as a birthday gift. That was it, because I had a birthday while I was there. I turned 32 on those freaking islands, and she was like, "It's your birthday, and I've got this thing for you, and it's a boy to dissect." And it's great. So that's fucking, I just want to say thank you again to Tina. This is a wonderful gift. And what a great thing to wrap up this show with.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you to, first of all, everybody who called in. No, except for Steve. Fuck you, Steve. But for everybody else who called in, I greatly appreciate it. We had a good time. Huge thank you to Arden Hart down the hall there, who produced both of the shows today.
She's
let me go work a Reptile Expo on my own. And now we've got lots of stuff to talk about. Forrest is here, so we're making use of Forrest in any and every show. He'll be back tomorrow for Skeptalk. Dude, I can't wait to see you and hang out next month. Please take care of yourself.
Likewise.
And all of you watching, take care of yourself. Go to linemerch.com or patreon.com/calltheline to help support the show, especially given how much we get demonetized and all that stuff there. There's all our producers on the side. Please vote.
Yeah.